Slime by David Walliams. Prologue. A brief history of slime. Slime is one of the greatest mysteries of the world, if not the greatest. It beats the creation of the Stonehenge, laughs in the face of the power of the pyramids, and takes a giant slimy plop on the Loch Ness Monster. Slime, what is it? Where is it? Who is it? How is it? And why is it? Children demand to know where slime came from, and grown-ups are desperate to know if it's ever going back. For the first time in history, the legend of slime can finally be told. All will be revealed in this book, which might be the most important book ever written. Some experts believe that slime dates back billions of years. Their theory is that when the earth was created, it was nothing more than a sea of slime. Out of the slime came more slime, and out of the slime came more slime. Then, of course, out of that slime came even more slime. It remained buried under the earth for billions of years, until now. Others suppose that at the dawn of the time of the giant meteor of slime crash-landed into Earth, on impact, billions of galleons of slime exploded into the air, covering every little thing in thick slime. This explains why the dinosaurs died out. They got slimed. There is another theory that many years ago slime-based aliens from a slime-based planet, the planet Slime, flew in a slime-based spaceship to Earth. Once on Earth, they taught ancient civilizations all about slime. How to construct buildings out of slime, the best recipe books to cook with slime, and most importantly, how to make socks with slime. Then, the slime-based aliens got their slime-based spaceship and whizzed back to their slime-based planet, the planet Slime, and they never came back again. But they left the secret of slime with the human race, so children could torment grown-ups forever. The truth is rather different. Slime was actually created more than 50 years ago on a remote island, the Isle of Mulch. To be precise, it is situated in the middle of the great northeast, southern, western sea, between the lands of Twaddle and Stench. How do I know all this? Because I just made it up. Chapter 1. Mulch. The little Isle of Mulch was home to less than 1,000 people, 999 to be precise. I told you it was less than 1,000. One of these 999 people was a boy named Ned. Ned wasn't short for being anything. He was just called Ned. Ned was 11 years old. He'd been born on Mulch and, like most islanders, had never left. To say Ned was just an ordinary boy would be wrong. He wasn't ordinary. He was extraordinary. Ned had been born with legs that didn't work. He couldn't walk at all, so was found a battered old rusty wheelchair, and he learned to use it. The boy could often be seen whizzing around the island, doing stunts and wheelies to delight his friends. "I got the zoomies," he would cry as he whizzed past. Home for Ned was a tiny weather-beaten old cottage. The cottage perched on the edge of a cliff, overlooking the raging sea that surrounded the island. From dawn until dusk, Ned's mother and father were out of the house at work. Dad was a fisherman, so was away at sea all day on his fishing boat. Mum sold the fish Dad caught at the island's market. The only fish you could catch around the Isle of Mulch were called shoefish. They were shaped like shoes. They tasted like shoes too. The overriding flavour was foot sweat, but the locals became used to the taste. Disgusting though it was, they had no choice. Needless to say, both Ned's parents absolutely stank of fish, but Ned didn't see or even smell much of them, as the pair were always working. Indeed, the boy was left home alone with his older sister, Gemina. Resented Ned deeply. She might have been the older one, but it was her younger brother who got all the attention. The girl wore pretty little flowery dresses with huge steel-capped boots and wasn't afraid to use them. Ned's aunt owned the Isle of Much. She was his mother's much older sister, and her name was Greta Greed. High on the island, overlooking the whole island, squatted Kitty Litter Castle, a huge medieval fortress that the lady called home. It was a world away from the tiny cottage that Ned shared with his family. Greed lived there alone, which is how she liked it. Her only company was her 101 cats. These cats were fearsome beasts. She had them to scare nasty little children away. The lady loathed children, especially her poor nephew Ned. Aunt Greta never did a thing to help him. From her, children ruined the Isle of Mulch with their games, their chatter, and worst of all, their stench. Aunt Greta should be the last person to complain about a smell, as she stank of cat pee. Because Aunt Greta owned the entire island, she had power over all those who lived there. The lady rewarded those grown-ups on Mulch who detested children almost as much as she did. One such man, Sir Walter Wraith, who was a nasty old wretch, whom Greed had made headmaster of only school on the island, Mulch, school for revolting children. The only thing that gave Wraith pleasure was expelling children from his school. Like so many others, Ned had suffered that fate. There was one toy shop on the island. Greed had given care of it to their twin brothers. Edmund and Edmundy Envy had named the shop Envy's Emporium because it was nothing more than a front for terrorizing children. Ned had a particularly nasty time when he'd last visited. Another resident of Mulch was Madame Silenzio Sloth. The lady was supposed to be a piano teacher, but she was too lazy to teach children anything. Sloth was a virtuoso of cruelty. Ned had the misfortune of being one of her pupils, and when he dared to complain, all hell broke loose. Captain Pride was an uptight ex-soldier whom Greed had appointed Mulch park keeper. The captain ensured no one could ever enjoy the island's only public park, especially not little people like Ned. Ice cream sellers Glenn and Glenda Glutton made sure children never got to enjoy an ice cream ever. The married couple zoomed around the island in their van, looking for children to rob. They took their pocket money and then sped off, without giving them their ice cream. If the Gluttons had lived anywhere else in the world, other than Mulch, they would have been locked up in prison and the key thrown away. However, Greed delighted in their scam, and ensured the pay were never brought to justice, even though they stole from her own nephew, Ned. So this little island was home to a large number of horrible grown-ups. But there was a child on the island who was probably as bad. Poor Ned was related to her. It was her sister. His sister. Chapter 2. A Beastly Girl. Ned's sister, Gemina, liked nothing more than playing horrid tricks on her little brother. Tricks that made the girl snigger to herself all day and all night. Tee-hee-hee-hee-hee. It wasn't a nice snigger. It was a nasty snigger, as she knew was beastly. The tricks were all absolutely foul, dropping wiggly-waggly worms down the back of her little brother's pyjamas. Yikes! Replacing Ned's toothpaste with glue, so his teeth stuck together. Emptying the jar of his favourite marmalade and replacing it with mashed up wasps. Yuck! Painting everything in her little brother's room bright purple. The walls, the ceiling, the floors, his toys, his clothes, even his pet gerbil. Hiding a big furry spider at the end of his bed, so it nibbled his toes. Ah! Yow! Dusting the toilet seat with chili powder was the boy's body was too hotty. Swapping Ned's favourite chocolate-coated raisins with gerbil droppings. Yuck! breaking wind into an old wooden box for a week, then opening it in Ned's bedroom so he would suffer. Pungstamogjoya! Pooh! However, all this was nothing compared to the nightmarish trick Gemina was planning for her little brother. Chapter 3. Gunk. Gemina was a child who revelled in all things yucky, not just spiders and worms, but gooey things too. All around the little cottage where the family lived, the girl had hidden gunk in jars. Things you found under rocks, things you found at the bottom of ponds, things you found lurking down the plug hole. Gemina would scoop up anything nasty and deposit it in a jar. Over time, she had collected hundreds and hundreds of jars of all different kinds of gunk. Every single one had a label on it, so Gemina could remember what was what. One shudders to think how the girl collected some of these revolting things. You would not want to touch this stuff with your bare hands. At the bottom of every wardrobe, at the back of every cupboard, under the floorboards, there were jars and jars, and more jars. Gemina was stockpiling them in the family cottage, as she wanted to play the most humongous trick on her little brother. A trick that would make him scream the house down. Ah! A scream that would echo all over the Isle of Much forever. Gemina would snigger herself to sleep, thinking about the devilish plan. He. There was just one problem. Her little brother was onto her. Chapter 4. Bogies under the bed. Ned found the jars, just one jar at first, in a deep sleep. Ned had rolled off his bed in the dead of night. Thud! Ouch! The fall woke him up. Just as he was about to haul himself back up, Ned noticed something glinting in the darkness under his bed. He reached out and found it was a jar. The label, in his sister's scrawled handwriting, read simply, Bogies. On closer inspection, he discovered it really was a jar bursting with bogies. They looked very much like Gemina's. She had picked, licked and flicked so many at Ned over the years that he could recognise them in any lineup and in an instant. Hers were always a brownish shade of green. At once, Ned knew his wicked sister was up to something. But why had she hidden her own bogies in a jar under his bed? Lifting up the sheets, he saw that this was just one of what had been hundreds of jars under there, each one containing something more disgusting than last. Ned's eyes bulged as he read the labels. Ground ants, boiled dandruff, yellow pus, yellow-brown pus, brown yellow pus, slobber, sludge, cheesy burps, meaty burps, spicy burps, burpy burps, monkey sweat, wart soup, toad juice, 10-year-old trifle that has gone so fizzy it will blow your head off, puddle gunja punge, something even more unspeakable than the other unspeakable thing that cannot even be named. One by one, Ned pulled out all the jars from under his bed. He was careful not to clink them together. The sound would wake up his wicked sister, who was sleeping in her room next door. Then Ned hoisted himself up onto his battered old wheelchair so he could go hunting up more jars. One good thing about getting around on wheels is that you can glide silently and undetected, as long as you don't bump into furniture, donk, or run over the cat. Meow. Ned rolled past his sister's bedroom and headed into the living room. Now, thought Ned, where could they be? It turned out everywhere. There were jars, and more jars of yucktastic stuff hidden in all the room, under the sofa, behind the curtains, on top of the bookshelf, in the sideboard, under the cushions, behind the plant pot, inside the lampshade, under the coffee table. The same was true of the kitchen and the hallway. Rolling past the boiler cupboard, Ned heard gurgling, gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. On opening the door, he could see jars and jars with gunk oozing out of them. The heat from the boiler must have made the gunk expand. It was a wonder that one of the jars hadn't exploded. Once again, all the jars were labelled, each full of something more puzzling than the last. What was all this stuff? Winky doink, mumpty, hum, fonk, fonk, willy bumps, noodle, boo boo, dunty punt, snud, miggle, piffle paffle, zonty wanty woo wah, plutz plutz, bim bam boom boom. And most importantly, what was she planning to do with all of it? The boy approached his mother and father's room. He peeked through the gap in the door. Their bed was empty. It was the early hours of the morning, and the pair were already at work. No doubt Dad was heading out to the sea, and Mum was setting up the market stall. A quick search by Ned of the back of their wardrobe revealed jars, jars, and more jars. Curiouser and curiouser, he muttered to himself. Then the boy rolled back into the hall, making his way towards his dreaded sister's bedroom. Trundle, 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 trundle. Ned was sure somewhere in there would be the answer. He put his ear up against the door. Zzz, zzz, zzz. Jemina was fast asleep, snoring like a steam train. The sign on her bedroom door read, "Entry strictly forbidden. Any unauthorised persons who go beyond this point will get a boot up the bottom." Now was Ned's chance. The boy took a deep breath. Then, as quietly as he could, he opened the door. Click, and gently rolled himself inside. Trundle. The boy hadn't been allowed in his sister's bedroom for years. No wonder she kept everyone out. Her room was full, bursting with jars and more jars of gunk. There must have been thousands upon thousands of jars in there, all the way from the floor to the ceiling. No wonder Jemina had resorted to hiding the jars all over the house. There was no more room in her room. It was a miracle she could even get out. As Ned watched her sister sleep, noting that she wore her steel-capped boots in bed, she scanned her bedroom for clues. There must be an answer somewhere to what she planned to do with all these jars of gunk. In a corner of the room were Jemina's school exercise books. Ned knew that his sister never did a scrap of work at school, so was surprised to see how well thumbed the books looked. Upon opening them, Ned discovered that they weren't full of schoolwork at all. Oh no. They were full of plans for the diabolical trick she was about to play on him. Chapter 5. The Bath of Doom. Ned's eyes widened at the horror, the unspeakable horror. The words and pictures in her books told the story in gruesome detail. So this is what his wicked sister was planning. There were lists, calendars, graphs, diagrams, and even a flip book of how it would all play out. It was called Ned's Birthday Surprise. And it was the boy's birthday. Tomorrow. Once a year on his birthday, Ned had a bath. In the family cottage, there was only enough hot water for one bathful a day. Of course, Jemina always bagsied every drop of hot water for herself. No wonder her parents reeked of fish. The only exception to this rule was on her little brother's birthday. On that special day, Jemina would be forced by her parents to relent and let her stinky Ned have this yearly soak. So the plan was that tomorrow Jemina would fill the bath with all gunk. Every last drop from every single jar would be emptied until the bath was full to the brim. Then she would squirt bubbles on top of the gunk, so Ned wouldn't see the horror that was lurking underneath. The bath of doom. There was even a cutaway diagram in her exercise book showing the hidden layer of gunk. Gemina knew her little brother would suspect nothing. This was his birthday treat, after all. Ned would think it was a lovely bath full of warm water and lower himself into it. Then, ugh, he would scream as he was covered from head to toe in gunk. Ned dropped Gemina's book in shock. Thonk. The girl stirred. Ned held his breath. Then she turned over and went straight back to sleep. Zzz, zzz, zzz. Taking great care, the boy rolled himself back out of Gemina's bedroom. He had to reverse his wheelchair, as with the mountains of jars, there wasn't room to turn around. Trundle, trundle, trundle. Then disaster. Clunk, clink, clank. The footrest on his wheelchair just clipped one of the jars on the floor. There must have been 50 jars stocked on top of it. Ned reached out, but he was too late. The skyscraper of jars began toppling over. Tipple, topple, topple. The jar at the top was heading straight for Gemina. As it fell through the air, it was as if time sped up and slowed down all at once. Snatch! Ned caught the jar just as it was a millimetre from thunking his sister on the head. As much as he would have wanted to see his sister thunked on the head with a jar of grumble and nosh, whatever that was, sadly now was not the time. It would spoil his surprise, because just as that moment, an idea came to him. Ding! An idea so simply brilliant. Simply brilliant and simply simple. Brimple. Ned would turn the tables on Gemina. The girl had a bath every single morning, apart from on Ned's birthday. Keep up. So Ned would do to her exactly what his sister was doing to him. She would suffer the bath of doom herself. Ned silently collected up all the jars of gunk in the house and brought them to the bathroom. Once safely inside, Ned locked the door. Click. He didn't want Gemina bursting in on him before the bath of doom was ready. Ha ha, chuckled the boy to himself. Outside it was still dark, but dawn was breaking and the birds were bursting into song. Tweet, 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 tweet. One by one he opened the jar of gunk and poured them into the bath. There was brown gunk, yellow gunk, thick gunk, black gunk, thin gunk, bubbly gunk, purple gunk, fizzy gunk, hot gunk, and cold gunk. Splish, splash, splosh. Yellow gunk, brown gunk, black gunk, thick gunk, bubbly gunk, hot gunk, cold gunk, fizzy gunk, and purple gunk. Every kind of gunk you could imagine. Gallons and gallons of gunk. Eventually the bath was full. After what seemed like hours of fetching, carrying, and unscrewing, the boy was exhausted. Catching his breath, Ned didn't notice what was happening right behind him. Gurgle. Whatever was in the bath was coming to life. Chapter 6. Gunk Monster. All the different types of gunk swirled together. Waves formed into the bath. Swish! The waves swept up, 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 swoosh, and they swept down, 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 swoosh. Ned turned round. It was a horrifying sight. He opened his mouth to scream, but no sounds came out. The bath was now a raging storm of gunk. Swish, swash, swoosh. It splashed all over the bathroom, coating everything in gunk. Splish, splash, splosh. The sink, the toilet, even Ned. All were gunk. Then, just as soon as the gunk had coated everything, it peeled itself off and whooshed back together. Woomph! Then the gunk began to take shape. At first, it became a giant egg, like the kind of egg a dinosaur might have laid. The egg bounced up and down, boing, 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 before smashing itself into the bathroom wall. Crack! The outer layer cracked like a shell as the gunk inside oozed out. The oozing gunk then began to grow upwards and upwards, becoming a mountain. Whoosh! No, it was a volcano, an erupting volcano. It didn't shoot lava into the sky, but rather gunk. Kaboom! Splurt. It splurted itself all over the bathroom ceiling before oozing back down to the floor to become an elephant. Hoo! It hooted. Then it became a shark. A shark. Chomp! No, a bird. Flap, flap. The gunk monster was swimming and flying at once. Swish, flap, swish, flap. The boy gazed open-mouthed in awe. This was the greatest show on earth, and it was all for him. Next, the gunk monster exploded into thousands of pieces as it became fireworks. Boom, boom, boom! Oh no, exclaimed the boy. What on earth have I done? Chapter 7. Blobby Blob. What the boy had done that day changed the course of history. In mixing together 1,000 different jars of gunk, Ned had created a brand new matter. Slime. The world would never be the same again. This was bigger, bigger than big, bigger than biggest, huge and monstrous. As Ned stayed deadly still, the slime began spinning round and round him. Whiz! It was a tornado of slime. A slimeado. No, thought Ned. I'm going to be slimed to death. He shut his eyes tight and shouted, Ah! Then the most amazing thing happened. The whirling tube of slime spun up over his head and slapped against the ceiling. Squelch! Then it began oozing downwards towards the boy. As it did, it began to take the shape. Not human shape exactly, more like a blob, on top of a blob, on top of a blob. It is easier if I show you. It looks like this. A blobby blobulous blob that was hanging down from the ceiling. A huge slimy upside down face was staring back at him. Good morning, it boomed. The boy's eyes darted around the bathroom. There was no one else there. This thing was talking to him. I said, good morning, it repeated. For something made out of slime, it had a surprisingly posh voice, as if it were royal, which seemed highly unlikely. Last time I checked, the royal family did not have a member who was made entirely of slime. Who are you, stammered Ned. The boy was trembling with fear. I am anything you want me to be, replied the thing. With that, the blob of slime squelched upside down across the ceiling. Squelch, 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 squelch. Next, it made its way down the wall, its slimy bottom acting like a suction pad against it. Eventually, the thing was standing on the floor of the bathroom, peering down at Ned. Now, boy, tell me what you wish me to be. Is this like Aladdin? Asked Ned excitedly. Is what like Aladdin? Like rubbing the lamp and a genie coming out and the genie giving you 3 wishes. The slime looked like lost in thought for a moment before replying, No, there is no lamp, I am not a genie, and there aren't 3 wishes. Oh, replied Ned, there are infinite wishes. That's a lot, isn't it? It's infinite, so yes, I suppose it is, unless it was infinite and 1, which would be silly. Cool, exclaimed Ned. So, boy, what do you wish me to be? I can be anything and everything. A hippopotamus, a swarm of bees, a giant pair of bloomers. As it spoke, shape-shifting into each thing, just think of something beginning with S. A sailing ship, a sphinx, a sausage as tall as a tree, a steamroller. The boy looked on in wonder as it changed with dizzying speed. A symphony. With that, there was the sound of a huge drum being struck. Boom! The slide shattered into what seemed like hundreds of tiny globules. They flew past Ned, and he realised that there wasn't just globules. They were musical notes, as if the sound symphony echoed around the bathroom. These musical notes danced through the air like butterflies. The boy watched in awe as they swooped and twirled in time to the music. wow, he stammered. Then, just as soon as the symphony ended, the globules all merged together. This time they didn't go back into being slime globules themselves. Oh no, the globules merged back into shape of a whale. The whale was so humongous it filled the entire bathroom. It floated in the air, swishing its tail. Swish, swoosh, swash. Am I back to normal? It asked. Something feels fishy. No, you're not back to normal, explained Ned, unless it is normal for you to be a big, ginormous whale. The whale of slime looked down and then fell through the air. Splat! It landed like dropped jelly on the bathroom floor. Silence. Next, Ned stared at it. Whatever was this thing? It looked to be no more. It was an X thing, lying motionless next to the wheels of the boys' wheelchair was nothing more than a puddle of gloop. Slime, called out Ned. He could think what else to call it, and slime seemed appropriate. Are you all right? After a moment, the slime poured itself back together into the shape of a blob. That's better, it said. I felt all over the place. Thank goodness, exclaimed Ned. Is Slime my name then? It asked. Can't think of a better one. Roger, Archibald, Brenda, offered Slime. I do feel like a Brenda. Mused the boy. I think you look more like a slime. Slime it is, said Slime. It gave the boy a funny look, as much as the blob of slime can give you a funny look. So, did you create me? Well, hesitated Ned. I guess I did. Father, exclaimed Slime. No. Mother! No. What then? I guess we are, well, Ned didn't dare say it at first, but nothing in his heart told him he shouldn't. Friends? Friends, repeated Slime. Friends, I like that. Yes, we are friends. The boy smiled and leaned over to hug his new friend, but all he got was a face of Slime. You didn't tell me your name, remarked Slime. Ned, replied Ned. I have a friend called Ned, exclaimed Slime. And Slime? Yes, Ned. I want you to help me play a trick. Goody, goody, snorted Slime, rubbing his slime hands together in glee. Or someone who's played a million tricks on me. Just then there was a pounding on the door. Boom! 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 What on earth is going on in there? A voice demanded. It was, of course, Gemina. Come out now, Ned, or I will beat this door down. Is that them, perchance? Inquired Slime. Now, how did you guess? Replied the boy, with a cheeky smile. Chapter 8. A particularly noisy poo. I said, what on earth are you doing in there? Came another shout from the other side of the bathroom door. Nothing, lied Ned. Nothing, bawled Gemina. I just heard a volcano, then a load of music, finally some kind of giant fish. Slime looked as if he was about to say something, maybe to correct the girl that technically a whale was not a fish, but in fact a mammal. Ned turned to his friend and put his fingers up to his lips in an internationally recognised signal for silence. Amazing. For just something made of slime, Slime understood. I was just doing an extremely noisy poo, spluttered Ned through the bathroom door. Noisy, she exclaimed. More like thunderous. Now open the door right now or I will boot it in. Bish bash bosh. That was the sound of her steel-capped boots kicking the door. Open it, said Slime. What? Exclaimed Ned. Let's play that trick on her. Now, asked the boy. Bish bash bosh. Goody goody, Slime. Goody goody, exclaimed Slime. Bish bash bosh. Splinters of wood exploded into the bathroom. What should I be? Asked Slime. A giant boot, perhaps. Boot her right back. Excellent, replied Slime. It translimed into a giant boot. Bish bash bosh. The bathroom door smashed off its hinges, taking some of the wall with it. The door smashed to the floor. Thud. and dust exploded into the bathroom. At once, nobody could see a thing. "Ned," bawled Jemina, "where are you?" Ned kept silent as the giant slimy boot, or sloot, appeared out of the dust cloud. Ned couldn't. "What the?" asked Jemina. The girl tried to boot the boot, but her foot got stuck in the slime. "Ah!" she screamed. Ned couldn't help but chuckle. "Ha ha!" Ned screamed. "Ned!" screamed Jemina. "I will beat you up the bottom for this." "No, no, no," replied the sloot. "I will beat you up the bottom." With that, Slime let go of the girl's boot. As Jemina tumbled to the floor, she swung her other boot up in the air and landed on her hands and knees. "Goodbye for now," said the sloot. It swung back then. Boof! And the girl was given a blobtastic boot in the bottom. "Ah!" she yelled as she bounced down the corridor. Swish! Before landing on the sofa in the living room. Twong! Instantly, Jemina leaped from the sofa and began stomping down the corridor. Stomp, stomp, stomp. "Wait until I get my hands on you, Ned. I'll beat you up the bottom from here to the next island." "How do we get out of here, Slime?" exclaimed Ned, and fast. "But how?" asked Slime. Now, back to being a blob. Ned looked up at the tiny bathroom window, just above the toilet. It was not much bigger than a cat flap. "That is the only way out of here," he said, pointing. "But I'm never going to get my wheelchair through there." "You won't need it today. Let me be your wings." "Wings?" The boy was flabbergasted. Slime translimed into a pair of wings. They stuck themselves onto Ned's shoulders and began to flap. Flap, 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 flap. The boy felt himself being lifted out of his wheelchair and floating through the air. "Wow!" he exclaimed. "Wow!" The wings couldn't fit through the window, so holding the boy, Slime translimed into the slide. Stomp, 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 stomp. Just before Jemina reached the bathroom, Ned whooshed down the slide and out of the window. "Whoosh! Ned!" screamed Jemina. But the boy was free. Chapter 9. Slime Ball. Ned slid down the slide of slime at speed. Whoosh! His family's cottage stood at the edge of the cliff, overlooking the sea. If the boy didn't stop sliding, he was going to be hurled off the edge to meet his end on the rugged rocks below. Ned saw the bottom of the slide approaching fast and screamed, "Ah!" He shut his eyes tightly. He couldn't bear to watch what was about to happen. But in the blink of an eye, the slide of slime became longer and longer and longer still. Then it arched and twisted, and the boy found himself doing a loop, the loop on his bottom. "Ah!" he screamed again, but this time in pleasure. He'd never had so much fun. The slide of slime arced away from the cliff edge and onto some fields near the cottage. It kept on getting fatter and fatter until it wasn't a slide any longer. Oh no, it had turned into some sort of slime rink. A slime rink, into a lot like an ice rink, but instead of ice, you guessed it, slime, a slink. The whole field was now covered with slime. Ned shot across it on his bottom. Whoosh! Whee! He exclaimed. Finally, he came to a halt. Then, at a dizzying speed, slime translimed again. The edges of the slime rink curled up and closed up on itself. Now, slime had come together to form a giant slime ball. It rolled along the field, trundle, trundle, with little Ned inside it. Then the slime ball began to bounce. It bounced and bounced and bounced and bounced over a sheep. Ba donk. It bounced over a hedge. Rustle, donk. Now it was bouncing along the lane. Up ahead, Ned could hear a tractor approaching. Chug, chug, chug. The sound of the mighty vehicle was growing louder and louder. Chug, chug, chug. The tractor was heading straight for them. Chug, chug, chug. "Look out!" screamed Ned, not sure where Slime's eyes might be at this precise moment. It might be a giant bouncing ball, and all that. Donk! Ned could feel the slime ball bouncing high up in the air. Whoosh! He heard the tractor pass underneath him. Chug, chug, chug. Just as Ned felt a wave of relief that he'd not been run over by a tractor, he felt a wave of panic, because the slime ball he was inside was now high up in the sky, so high that it hit a flock of seagulls. Squawk, squawk, squawk. One of the seagulls pecked at the slime ball. Peck! It burst. Pop! Instantly, Ned began tumbling through the air. "Help!" he cried, but Slime acted fast. It whizzed down ahead of him and trans-slimed into a trampoline. A slime-o-line. Ned hit the slime-o-line at speed and bounced high up into the air. Boing, boing, and again. Boing, and again. Boing. A smile spread across the boy's face. He was alive, and what's more, he was bouncing. Swish! Boing, boing, boing. Yippee! He yelped in delight. He yelped too soon. Looking down, he saw the slime-o-line disappear from beneath him. No! He cried, falling rapidly. The boy looked all around. Try as he might, he couldn't see the slime anywhere. This is the end, he thought. The road below was speeding towards him. Then a giant eagle, every colour of the rainbow, swooped down under Ned. It swept him high into the air. Now he was flying high above the sea, the cliff, the cottage. "You really can be anything," cried the boy. "Anything," exclaimed the bird of slime, or slurred. From the way up here, the Isle of Much looked tiny. The houses looked small. The trees looked small. The people looked small. The people looked so small, in fact, that they were little more than ants. As for the ants, they looked really, 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 really small. For the first time in his short life, Ned felt something he'd never felt before. Power. Slime power. The boy had created something that could change everything. The Isle of Much was full of horrid grown-ups who made the lives of children miserable. Now Ned could get his own back and all these nasty characters. Not just for him, but for the children of the island. There was no better time than for Ned to start now. Chapter 10. Wraith's Rules. "This way," exclaimed the boy as he flew through the sky. "Look, that's my old school. I want to introduce you to my horrid headmaster." "Goody, goody," replied Slime. The bird flapped its wings and began swooping off into the direction of a huge sign outside that read, "Mulch School for Revolting Children." A bell chimed. Ding! It was the beginning of the school day. Things started indecently early at Mulch School. At the break of dawn. That is how the headmaster liked it. The children having to get up in the middle of the night to be at school on time was all part of the torture. Ned smiled to himself at the thought of what naughtiness was to come as he began descending into the playground. Just as soon as the bird of slime's feet touched down, it placed Ned onto a bench and then trans-slimed back into a blob. The blob loomed behind the boy like a great slimy shadow. "Let's give Mr. Wraith something to be angry about," began the boy. "Goody, goody." Not surprisingly, after seeing a giant bird of slime in the playground, the teachers all hurried out of the school building, pointing and shouting. I don't believe it." "I won't believe it," shouted another. "I will believe it, 'cause I can't believe it," shouted a third. The pupils of Mulch School all pressed their faces up against the classroom windows to see. They were too frightened of the teachers to dare step outside into the playground without permission. Then a man with a long black gown draped over his shoulders stormed out of the building. He whisked the cloak around theatrically, as if he was Count Dracula twirling his cape. Swish! It was only his teacher's gown, but it offered him an air of evil that he relished. Mr. Wraith, the headmaster, had a big, bald head, so he looked like an egg with a little moustache drawn onto it. This moustache would flare up whenever he exploded with rage. This was not often, so often, in fact, that Mr. Wraith was in rage more often than not. Take a look at his rageometer of Mr. Wraith's typical day. As you can see, his rage is literally off the scale. It is certainly off the page. Mr. Wraith raged at all the children in Mulch School, as it was the only school that was all the children on the island. The lucky ones got whacked with a wooden ruler. The unlucky ones were whacked with a wooden ruler and then expelled. Landing giant birds in the playground is strictly forbidden, he raged at Ned as he marched down towards him. Even though landing a giant slime bird in the playground was not covered in the school rules, the headmaster was confident he could invent one. Mr. Wraith had invented a long list of his own rules over the 30-year reign of terror at Mulch School. Wraith's rules. No comparing me to an egg. I do not look like an egg. Eggs do not have a moustache, and I have a moustache. So that is the end of it. Anyone who dares compare me to an egg will be expelled. Also, my head is a lot bigger than an egg, and I have ears, and the last time I checked, eggs do not. Number 2. No breaking wind on school premises without a letter of consent from the headmaster. Even if a bottom burp comes out by accident, when you catch a cricket ball, you will be expelled. Chapter 3. No laughing at school. You have not come to school to laugh. Crying, sobbing, or bawling of any kind is welcome, though. There is no better sound of the child blubbering. Anyone heard laughing will be struck with a wooden ruler and then expelled. Chapter 5. No excuses whatsoever for late homework. I don't care if your house took off in a tornado or you were abducted by aliens. If your homework is so much as 1 second late, you will be expelled. Number 5. No moaning about school dinners. School fish are incredibly tasty and can be used in every single dish in the school canteen. Shoefish spread. Shoefish pie. Shoefish stew. Shoefish curry. Shoefish cake. Shoefish blancmange. Shoefish mousse. Shoefish surprise. The surprise being it is made of shoefish. Anyone overheard moaning about the school dinners will be forced to finish their school dinner before being expelled. Number 6. No wearing your tie the wrong way round so that skinny part is on the outside and the wide part is on the inside. Anyone found with their school tie the wrong way round will be spun around by their tie and expelled out of the window. Rule 7. No playing in the playground. At break time and lunchtime you are only permitted to stand around in the rain. There shall be no playing games. Any children caught playing games will be forced to stand outside in the rain and then expelled. Rule 8. No chocolate allowed on school premises. Any chocolate will be confiscated personally by me. I will then dispose the chocolate by eating it. Anyone who refuses to hand over the chocolate to me will not be expelled. They will be held upside down by their ankles and dangle out of the window until they hand over their chocolate. After I have eaten the chocolate, then, and only then, will they be expelled. Rule 9. No sneezing during lessons. It is disruptive to work. If you don't feel a tickle in your nose telling you that a sneeze is coming on, then for goodness sake wait until you're home and then you can sneeze. Anybody heard sneezing in school will be expelled. Just as a sneeze expels snot from your nose, a handy metaphor, as children equal snot. Rule 10. Complaining about how many rules there are in the school. Anyone found complaining will not be expelled, as that is what they would want. Instead, they will be put down every year and forced to stay at the school forever. Just ask old man Giles. He is 92 and has been at Mulch School all his life. Ned was one of the hundreds of children who had been expelled from the school over the years. The headmaster had expelled so many that there were more teachers than there were children at the school, as this handy graph shows. But now Ned was back, and he was ready for revenge. Chapter 11. A Blazing Bottom. Mr. Wraith had been careful not to expel all the children at the school. If he did, there would be no children left to expel, and he loved expelling children. Once a child on their very first day at school was expelled for skipping through the school gates. It was a new record for Mr. Wraith, expelling a child who'd been at the school for less than 3 seconds. As for Ned, the boy was expelled for the simple crime of laughing. Ha ha ha. In fairness to Mr. Wraith, the boy was laughing because in art class the pupils were charged with decorating an egg for Easter, and Ned had painted his egg to look exactly like Mr. Wraith. This was much to his and everyone else's amusement. Ha 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 ha. You boy, bellowed the headmaster. What are you doing in my school? You are expelled. Hello again, sir, chirped Ned. He didn't sound too bothered. It is impossible to be expelled when you have already been expelled. And what on earth is this monstrosity you have brought with you? Spat Wraith. What a dreadful little man, murmured Slime. Whatever shall we do with him? Ned thought for a moment. We need to teach the headmaster a lesson. Us kids have suffered his rages for long enough. Wraith is always in rage about nothing. Let's finally give him something to be really, really angry about. Splendid. Now let me think. Too late, Blobby, shouted Mr. Wraith. I am going to punish this boy severely. Did you hear me? Severely. With that, the headmaster whipped out the long wooden ruler he'd been concealing under his cloak. Wraith lunged at the boy, ready to strike. Thwack, 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 went the ruler as it chopped through the air. Just as Mr. Wraith was about to cause Ned excruciating pain, Slime shapeshifted into a giant octopus, a Sloctopus. One of the Sloctopus's arms wrestled the ruler from the headmaster, while another looped round the man's ankle. Before Mr. Wraith could shout expelled, the Sloctopus lifted him high into the air. Ned laughed as he looked up to see his old headmaster upside down above him. Ha 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 ha! I will get you for this, boy, screamed Mr. Wraith. I'm not sure you will, replied the boy. Let him go, shouted the teachers gathered in the playground. Actually, I don't mind if you keep him, muttered the bearded deputy head. Mr. Lust had long been lusting after the job at that school. What now, my young friend? Asked the Sloctopus. Spin Mr. Wraith round like he spins round that ruler of his, replied the boy. I don't mind if I do. So the Sloctopus spun the headmaster faster and faster. Still, it was as if Mr. Wraith were on a particularly puke-tastic fairground ride. Let go now, commanded Ned. The Sloctopus released its grip, and Mr. Wraith went flying off. Whizz! Ah! He cried as he zoomed up above the clouds. There was an eerie silence for a moment, when it looked as if Mr. Wraith might be heading for outer space. A sound of whistling. It looked as Mr. Wraith might be heading for outer space. A sound of whistling cut through the quiet. All eyes in the playground searched the sky. There! Shouted Ned. What a shame, muttered Mr. Lust, stroking his beard. There was a tiny glow of red light high in the morning sky. As it began to descend, Ned exclaimed, It's Mr. Wraith's bottom burning up as he enters the atmosphere. Before you complain to me about this, let me inform you, this is science. "Ah!" cried Mr. Wraith as he plunged through the sky. Fortunately for the headmaster, he crash-landed into the sea. Splosh. There was a sound of sizzling, sizzle, as the water put out the blazing fire on Mr. Wraith's bottom cheeks. Then the headmaster cried, "Help, I can't swim." "Let's not be too hasty," remarked Mr. Ludd. "Tea and biscuits, anyone?" Ned nodded to Slime. They couldn't let the man drown. The Sloctopus reached out one of its arms. It grew longer and longer and longer, until it reached all the way into the sea. Then the Sloctopus plucked up the headmaster, who was bobbing in the waves, and deposited him back in the playground. Ah, splat! All the teachers had to stifle their giggles at the sight of the headmaster looking most undignified. Ha ha ha! Wraith was soaking wet, and the seat of his trousers had burned right through. Everyone could see his bright red bottom, still blazing from his descendant. It was so red it looked like a baboon's bottom. All the school children still had their faces pressed up against the classroom's window. Now they were laughing at their headmaster too. Ha 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 ha. No one laughed harder than Old Man Giles, the 92-year-old pupil whose punishment was being put down a year every year. He had been at Mulch School the longest, 87 years to be precise. Ha 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 ha! Old Man Giles chortled so hard that his false teeth shot out of the window. Plunk! This only made him laugh more. Ha 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 ha! If Wraith were an egg, he would now be scrambled. "Goodbye, sir," chirped Ned sarcastically. The Sloctopus transformed into a hot air balloon, a slaloon, and it whisked the boy up from the bench and into the sky. "My ruler!" shouted Wraith. On cue, the slaloon dropped the ruler and it landed on the headmaster's head with a clunk. "Ha ha ha! Ha ha ha! Ha 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 ha!" laughed all the children. "Do come back again soon and finish him off, please," called Mr. Lust. Chapter 12. Cold Hearts. As Ned floated across the sky in his hot air balloon made of slime, he looked down on the little island he called home. Not far from the school was Mulch's toy shop, Envy's Emporium. "There we go," he shouted to Slime. "Down we go," replied his friend. The toy shop belonged to twin brothers, Edmund and Edmond Envy. The duo dressed identically in matching waistcoats and bow ties. Their hair was too young for their craggy old faces. It was permed tightly and dyed so black it was blue. However, what Edmund and Edmond were most well known for was their nastiness. The pair hated children. Some thought they only ran a toy shop so they could hate children more. As for the children of Mulch, it was the only toy shop on the island, so they had no choice. If they wanted a toy, they had to go to Envy's Emporium. Why did Edmund and Edmond hate children so much? Because they envied them. The twins were bitter that they were old and ruined. Years and years of sniping and snarking and snumping at each other had chilled their hearts. They hated each other nearly as much as they hated children. Envy's Emporium was an ordinary toy shop. In amongst the cars, dolls and games you would expect to find in any toy shop, the twins had added some of their own special surprises. In Envy's Emporium, snakes and ladders set where there are no ladders, just snakes on every single square. Slide. A toy telephone that never ever stops ringing, so it drives you bananas. Ring, 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 ring. A rocking horse inside which the twins had placed a hidden motor. It rocks so fast it hurls the rider off. Thud. Whoosh! A baby doll that not only cries real tears, but also does number ones and number twos. Pooh! Their own version of the game Operation. There was no electric buzz, but an electric shock when you touch the sides. The electric shock is so powerful it will throw you across the room and leave you in dire need of an operation yourself. Pow! A 999,999 G-piece jigsaw. It says million-piece jigsaw on the box, but the terrible twins have removed one piece. You would finally get to the end after a decade and still not be able to complete it. A trike, where they have taken the seat off and replaced it with a fork. So every time you sit down to pedal, you get an ouchtastic pain in your bottom. Prong, my body! These were the perfect toys to bring terror to children. Now, Ned was determined to turn the tables on them. Chapter 13. Clockwork Robot. Some time ago, Ned had fallen in love with a very special toy in Envy's Emporium, a toy his mum and dad could never afford to buy him. Ned's parents were humble people and they worked from dawn until dusk just to put food on the table. The toy was a clockwork robot, metal and boxy with lights and whirring noises, just as a clockwork robot should be. The boy had seen it on display in the window of the twins' shop, and he would stop by on his way home from school each night to gaze at it. It was perfect. Ned knew this clockwork robot would be much, much more than just a toy. It would be a friend. The boy and his robot would have adventures together. They would fly spaceships, battle alien armies, visit distant planets, and still be home in time for tea. As Ned would daydream, Edmund and Edmond would spy him staring through the window and charge out of the shop. "Be gone, child!" Edmund would shout. "Wretched boy," Edmund would agree. "I was only looking," Edward would protest. Stop wearing our precious toys with your eyes. If you aren't going to purchase the said toy, then shoo! Never darken our door again." Then the horrid pair would retreat into the shop and slam the door. Bang! A sign on the door read, "Only one child at a time. Children are vile, thieving rats." Years, months, and weeks passed. Eventually, Ned had saved up enough of his pocket money to buy the robot for himself. So one Saturday morning, he wheeled himself inside the shop. Tring! Went the bell on the door. Strangely, the shop was completely empty. "Hello," he called out. "Hello," but there was no answer. With trepidation, Ned picked up the clockwork robot from the window and took it over to the till. Still, the boy couldn't see anyone. Then, boo! The twins leaped up from behind the counter. Edmund had some joke-shop fangs in his mouth and was pulling a vampire face. Meanwhile, Edmund had sharp claws on his fingers and was pulling a werewolf face. The pair loved frightening children. A startled Ned roared back in his wheelchair. "Trundle, why did you do that?" he spluttered. "Happy Halloween!" the twins chimed in together. Ned thought for a moment. "It's not Halloween for another 6 months." "It's Halloween every day in Envy's Emporium," said Edmund. "We don't need a special day to scare children," agreed Edmund. The twins looked down at the clockwork robot the boy was holding in his hands. "So you've finally saved up all your precious little pennies, have you?" remarked Edmund with a look of pity on his face. "Yes," replied the boy. He took out his piggy bank from next to him on his battered old wheelchair. The piggy bank was indeed full of pennies. Ned received just a penny a week of pocket money. It was all his parents could afford. But the boy had saved and saved and saved and then saved some more. The night before, Ned had counted all the pennies and realised to his delight he had just enough to buy the robot. The twins snatched the piggy bank and shook out the coins on the counter. Ting, ting, ting. The evil old pair bristled as they realised they would have to count every single one. There must have been hundreds and hundreds of coins. Then Ned noticed Edmund whispering in Edmund's ear before the pair shared a secret smile. "I will go and fetch your bag, purred Edmund. You go do that, Edmond, replied Edmund. No, you're Edmund, am I? Asked Edmond. Yes, I am Edmond. Are you sure? Quite sure. I thought it was the other way round. No, definitely not. Oh, said Edmund. The twin was most befuddled. Well, you do that, Edmond. Thank you, Edmond, replied Edmond, before realising he'd made a mistake. Doe, you've got me doing it now. The boy looked in disbelief. The envy twins were crackers. Edmond tipped off as Edmund began counting the coins on the counter. 1, 2, 3. Ned looked down at the clockwork robot he was carrying in his hands. At last, the fantastic toy, which he'd coveted for so many years, was going to be his. 4p, 5p, 6p. Boom! There was a deafening explosion right next to the boy's ear. Horror upon horror. Ned dropped the clockwork robot to the floor. Clank! It smashed into pieces. Clatter! In tears, Ned leaned over his wheelchair to collect them all up, but it was no use. The robot was destroyed. Still, 7p, 8p, 9p. Hunched over, the boy could feel someone looming behind him and turned around. It was Edmond. The twin was holding what was left of a brown paper bag that he had burst. Oops, remarked Edmund. Oops indeed, agreed Edmund. The nasty little runt has broken our toy. All children are vile, especially this little vandal. All breakages must be paid in full. But, pleaded Ned, it wasn't my fault. Oh, yes, it was. You gave me a fright. What fright? Asked Edmund most innocently. I didn't hear anything, lied Edmund. I am going, announced Ned. The boy made a grab for the pennies, all spread out on the counter, but Edmund whisked them away just in time. Tink, tonk, tonk. They're mine, pleaded the boy. You didn't listen, snarled Edmund. All breakages must be paid in full, repeated Edmund. But, no buts, boy, now be gone. With a heavy heart, the boy turned his wheelchair and rolled himself out of Envy's Emporium. Just as Ned reached the door, he turned back to see the evil pair collapse in hoots of laughter. Ha, ha, ha! We got him! We got him good and proper. When all this happened, Ned had felt helpless to do anything. Today, he had the power to right this wrong, and so many others. Chapter 14. The most revolting toys in the world. The hot air balloon made of slime landed on the dew-dusted roof of Envy's Emporium. Splat! Tring! The bell chirped as the door to the toy shop opened. Sitting on the roof, Ned could see the top of a little girl's head rushing out. The frizzy-haired child was in floods of tears, clutching a headless dolly. Boo-hoo-hoo, she cried. A slate came loose on the roof and fell to the ground. Crunch! The frizzy-haired girl looked up. Ned? Shh! Shushed Ned. The girl wiped her eyes and nodded before running off home. As she disappeared from view, the Envy twins stepped out of their shop. Ha, 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 they laughed. Another satisfied customer, Edmund, chirped one. No, we've been through this 1,000,000 times, snapped the other. You are Edmund, am I? Yes. Well, who's Edmond then? Me. Are you sure? Get inside, Edmund. Who's that? You. With that, the pair scrambled back into their shop. They both tried to go through the door at the same time and became stuck for a moment. Twing! Still hiding up on the roof, the boy whispered to his friend, When you hear me shout slime, I want you to come down the chimney. Slime? Asked Slime, who had gone back to being a blob. Yes, slime. So now? No, when you say slime. You just said it again. I mean when I say it next. What? Slime. Slime? Now? No, and keep your voice down. They might hear us, hissed Ned. Listen out for the magic word. There's a magic word as well? Slime was becoming mightily confused. No, Slime. No, Slime is The magic word. You said it. Next time I say it. Next time you say it. You are really getting annoying, Slime. Now let me down. Slime turned himself into a pole, which the boy slid down to the ground. Then part of the pole separated off to form a huge motorbike for Ned. A motorbike made of slime. A slimo-bike. Tring. With a smug smile, Ned sped into Envy's Emporium. Brum. Once again the shop appeared to be empty. "Hello?" called the boy. "Hello?" There was silence before. Boo! Edmund and Edmond leaped up from behind the counter. Edmund had a joke arrow through his head and Edmond an axe. "Oh, what an incredible shock," said the boy sarcastically. Ned felt rather cool sitting astride his beast of a bike. The evil pair looked most displeased. "We don't want to see you back," remarked Edmund. "Well, boys, here I am," replied Ned defiantly. "What a revolting looking motorbike," said Edmond dismissively. "It's a monster," said Ned, as he revved the engine. Brum, brum, brum. It's funny is what it is," said Edmond. "Funny peculiar, not funny ha ha," agreed Edmund. "We want it out of our emporium now. And if you are looking for a refund on the robot you smashed to smithereens, it's a no." No, replied Ned. "It's not that. I just wondered if you had one particular toy." "Toy? Toy?" spluttered Edmund. "This is Edmund and Edmond's Envy's Emporium, the greatest toy shop in the whole island." "The only toy shop in the whole island," remarked Ned. "Still, that means it's the greatest," added Edmond. "What are you looking for, boy?" asked Edmund. "A bouncy ball that never stops bouncing," suggested Edmond, picking up one from behind the counter and hurling it at the floor. Boing, 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 boing. An exploding rubber ducky, chimed in his twin brother. Perfect for a deadly bath. He turned the timer on the side, then rushed to the door and threw it on the road. Kaboom! As it hit the bouncing ball again. Boing, boing, boing. Thick white liquid splattered all over the windows. Splat, split, splut. The milk float doing its early morning round had exploded. When the milkman returned to it with his crate, he looked mightily shocked. "A Scrabble set without any vowels," said Edmond, picking up their own version of the classic game. Or consonants," the evil pair chuckled at the thought. "Ha, ha, ha." The boy simply shook his head. Ned was in no rush. In fact, he was determined to enjoy this. "A giant cuddly tarantula spider," purred Edmund. "It even bites with real venom," added Edmund. Thwack. "A potato gun that fires whole potatoes," announced Edmond, pulling the trigger. Bang! The potato went straight through the window. Shatter. Edmund gave Edmond a whack around the back of his head. Thwack! Ouch! "A balloon we blew up with a wretched bottom gas," continued Edmund, letting out some of the putrid air. Splurt. Pooh! exclaimed Ned. "It really did stink." "Our brand new snakes and ladder set, now with real live snakes." The pair opened the box. To his horror, Ned could see hundreds of snakes slithering inside. The boy slammed the box shut. "No," snapped Ned. "There is something else I want. Something even more revolting than all those toys you suggested." The twins looked at each other and grimaced as if to say, "More revolting? Pray to tell, child," hissed Edmond. "Here at our Envy's Emporium, we do pride ourselves on selling the most revolting toys in the world." I know, agreed Ned. All the children on the island know. But there is a toy that is guaranteed to appall even you. Ha ha ha, the pair sniggered. We are such an appalling pair, I very much doubt anything that could appall us, exclaimed Edmund. Well, let's see Edmund and Edmund Envy, began the boy. I thought we were both called Edmund, said Edmund. Shut up, hissed Edmund. Edmund and Envy of Envy's Emporium. I want to introduce you to the wonderful world of... Ned took a deep breath and shouted, Slime! Chapter 15. Giant Jelly Babies. Nothing happened. The Envy twins looked all around the Emporium before returning their beady-eyed gaze to the boy. Why are you shouting, boy? Demanded Edmund. We are standing right here, added Edmund. A feel of panic washed over Ned, as Slime was all the way up on the roof. It must not have heard. There was only one thing for it. Shout louder. I said I want to introduce you both to the wonderful world of slime, repeated Ned. Still nothing. Things weren't going to plan. Slime! The boy shouted again. Nothing. Nada. Zilch. The Envy twins shared a look. Why, oh why do you keep shouting slime? Asked Edmund. Because if you say it loud enough, it will magically appear. Oh, indeed, agreed Ned. Let's try it together. On three. 1, 2, 3. But before they could shout slime appeared. It was gushing down the chimney and began flowing through the fireplace all over Envy's Emporium. Gurgle. I'm sorry I'm late, Slime called out. I was on the loo. Ned looked puzzled. He had no idea Slime had to go to the loo. What would it pass? More slime? There wasn't time to think about it, as all at once the shop was awash with slime. For Jurgle. No! Shouted the pair. At this time, it was Ned's turn to do the chuckling. Ha ha ha! The two men were up to their knees in the stuff. Slime whisked the boy and placed him on the counter. Out! Bellowed Edmund at the slime. Shoo! Bawled Edmund. Be gone! They both screamed, but still the slime was rising in the shop. Bajurgle Murgle. Now, Slime, began Ned. Yes, Ned, replied Slime, as it was now coming to their necks. I want you to slime into a dozen little children. What? Exclaimed the Envies. Just a dozen, you say? Asked Slime mischievously. No, make it 100, replied the boy. No, cried the pair, but there was nothing they could do. In a moment, slime began breaking up into hundreds of blobs. These blobs took the shape of children. Soon there was an army of giant jelly babies. Children! Screamed Edmund. Children, 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 everywhere. Now, kids, called out Ned, help yourself to any toy in the shop. No! Cried Edmund, but there was no stopping them. The children of every size and shape and colour began taking the toys off the shelves until Envy's Emporium was completely bare. The Envy twins tried to stop the children by snatching toys back, but then another giant jelly baby would come up behind them and give them a good old whack around the head with a toy. Boof! Owie! The biggest of the giant jelly babies ran to the counter, and Ned pushed himself onto his shoulders. Squelch! Time to go, ordered Ned. All the other giant jelly babies charged out behind him, all proudly holding their toys. Word must have spread around the island that something was going on at Envy's Emporium. The frizzy-haired girl was back, and this time she brought her friends. There were children from all over Mulch waiting outside the shop. The giant jelly babies handed the children a toy each. Thank you, Ned. You are the best. This is brilliant. Serves the twins right. Wow. Cool. shouted the children as they made off with the loot. Inside the shop, Edmund and Edmund were broken men. They fell to their knees and howled in despair. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! Ned slowly opened the door before shouting through the gap. Boo! Ah! The twins screamed. Chapter 16. From high in the sky, the island's park rolled into view. Slime had translimed into a pterodactyl, the flying reptile that had ruled the sky millions of years ago. Ned was riding astride its back with a smug-tastic grin on his face. A pterodactyl darkening the sky must have been a terrifying sight for anyone below in the park. Not that there were ever people in Mulch Park. That is because the park keeper forbade it. Aunt Greta Greed had appointed the old soldier Captain Pride as the island's park keeper. The man took such great pride in his kingdom, or parkdom, that nobody was ever allowed inside. Keep off the grass is a sign you might see in the park. Keep off the path, less so. Keep off the park, never. There was no doubt that the park keeper kept the most perfect park. Not just on the island, but in the whole world. The grass was an exact shade of green, not too brown, not too yellow, just green. If a blade of grass became in any way discoloured, Captain Pride would dangle himself over the lawn with the special Pride's tackle. This was a piece of apparatus that Captain Pride himself, ex-member of the Queen's Guard, had invented. It consisted of a winch, a harness, and a series of ropes and pulleys. Pride's tackle allowed the captain to dangle over the grass without touching it. Then he would take out his 24-piece green felt tip pen set with every shade of green imaginable and no other colours. Then, dangling just above the ground, the captain would colour in the discoloured blade of grass so it matched all the others perfectly. The park keeper was doing just that when he heard the flapping of a prehistoric wings overhead. Flap, flap, flap. Of all the things that the park keeper expected to see that day, a flying reptile was not one of them. In his army years, Captain Pride had witnessed many terrifying things while serving in the jungle. He had woken up to discover a python slowly digesting his right foot as he slept. Been blasted in the bottom by a bazooka. Boom! Mama! Mama! Tiptoed over stepping stones to cross a river, only to discover they were actually crocodiles. Snap, snap, snap. Stumbled across a whoop of gorillas who were intent on playing kiss chase with them. Mwah, mwah, yuck, yuck, yuck. Mwah, mwah, yuck, yuck. Been caught in a stampede of elephants. Stamp, stamp, stomp, stomp. Then marched around as a flat pancake for weeks. Looked in the mirror to shave his beard off, except on closer inspection it wasn't a beard. Oh no, it was a great big hairy caterpillar squatting on his chin. Yanked on what he thought was a toilet chain, only to find out it was in actual fact a tail of a tiger. Roar! Put on his underpants, only to discover they were crawling with cockroaches. Munch, munch, munch. Come face to face with a hungry hippopotamus. The creature burped with such force it blew him clean over. Burp, thud, and most horrifyingly of all, opened the door of the wash tent, only to be greeted by the sight of the old major taking a bath. For goodness sake, Captain, knock next time. I am in the nudie woody. But Captain Pride had never ever seen a pterodactyl, which was understandable, as they had gone extinct millions of years before. Let alone a pterodactyl made of slime was a boy riding on its back. What the blazes? He bawled. In shock, his 24-piece green pen set tumbled to the ground. Scatter. As he tried to snatch at his precious pens, he accidentally let go of the lever on his Pride's tackle. Yank. The rope spun through the apparatus. His bottom slapped a rose bush. Rustle. Then, horror upon horror, the slime pterodactyl, or slimodactyl, set its mighty feet down on the park's lawn, its mighty claws digging into the grass. "No!" cried Captain Pride, swinging himself as hard as he could to set himself free from his tackle. This he did, although not without landing upside down in a hedge. Thunk. Oof! Can't you read the sign, you dinosaur? Captain Pride hollered as he brushed bits of hedge and of his blazer and smoothed down his moustache. Keep off the grass. The pterodactyl translimed back into being a blob. Ned slid off his friend onto the park bench, which had never ever been graced with a bottom. After all, there was a huge sign that read, "Keep off the bench." "What the devils is that boy? Is that thing, boy?" demanded Captain. "It's my friend," replied Ned. "I'm Slime," said Slime. Slime reached out a blobby hand for the captain to shake. The man's nose wrinkled in disgust. From the bench, the boy looked down under his feet at the perfectly green grass. "The grass is looking especially green today, Captain Pride," he chirped. "I said, off." "I brushed the grass only this morning," protested the captain, waving a toothbrush from his breast pocket as proof. You have another sign that says, "Keep off the path," remarked Slime. "Yes," replied the captain. "Well, where can we stand then?" asked Slime. "Absolutely anywhere you like, as long as it's outside my park. Now be gone." But the pair were in no mood to go. The two friends shared a smile. The naughtiness was about to begin. Chapter 17. The Book of Park Occurrences. "My basketball rolled onto the grass that time, didn't it, Pride?" announced Ned from the park bench. "Captain Pride, to you," the man thundered. "Didn't it, Captain Pride?" replied Ned, enjoying winding up the Pride man. "Captain, I remember it well," said the park keeper. "All serious incidents are noted down in the park occurrences. Let me have a look." The man pulled a little red leather-bound notebook from his blazer pocket. Embossed on the cover were the words, "Book of Park Occurrences." "Let me see. January the 1st, began Pride, leafing through the pages. "Not a happy new year, as at 7:00 hours, highly offensive sweet wrappers blows into park. Entire area is sealed off until culprit who dropped said sweet wrapper is found and fined." Ned looked at Slime, and Slime looked at Ned. They both rolled their eyes at each other. 14th of February, 0900 hours, a pigeon does his doo-dahs on the newly waxed park bench. Pigeons are brought into the park shed for questioning one by one until one of them squawks. Ned and Slime sighed at this silly little man. "Oh yes, here it is. March the 3rd. Captain Pride was becoming animated now. 1100 hours. A basketball is on the grass. It bounces repeatedly, 7 times to be precise, before eventually coming to a stop. One blade of grass is killed, another is seriously injured. Basketball is dealt with in an instant with military precision. I puncture it with my litter-collecting spear." "The basketball was a Christmas present from my granny," said the boy sorrowfully. "She sent it all the way from the Isle of Stench. It accidentally bounced over the wall. Why didn't you just throw it back when I asked you?" The captain's moustache bristled. I did throw it back," he protested. "Only after you'd burst it," replied the boy. "I still threw it back." The captain's left eye now began to twitch. "Right, I want both of you out of my park." "Now." Ned looked at Slime. "All in good time. First, we need a little something for you just to dot jot down in your park occurrences book. It's called the Book of Park Occurrences, not the Park Occurrences book, corrected the captain. Slime, continued Ned, I think we need to cause some mischief. Goody, goody, agreed his friend. 1,000 sweet wrappers, if you please. What the blazes? spluttered Captain Pride. Now, shouted the boy. Halt! cried Pride. This little man could make a big noise, but it was too late. Slime translimed into 1,000 sweet wrappers of every colour imaginable. They floated through the air, dancing on the breeze. Captain Pride ran around in circles, trying to grab them, to no avail. Ha, 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 ha! Ned laughed. Now, let's have 100 basketballs. At once, the sweet wrappers clung together to form balls that bounced up and down on the grass with glee. The grass! My precious grass! Keep off the grass! Yelled Pride, but there was just too many of them. He ran to fetch his little spear and stabbed them, but whenever he hit one, it just soaked him in slime. Let's not forget the pigeons, shouted out one of the slime basketballs that had Slime's face on it. Of course, said Ned. In an instant, every one of those hundreds of basketballs became a pigeon. Not just any pigeon, a pooping pigeon. A super-duper whooper pooping pigeon. Squawk, squawk, squawk. Splat, splat, splat. As the birds looped and twirled through the air, they dropped their load of multicoloured slime poop, or sloop, everywhere. Splat, splat, splat. The lawn was splattered. Splat, splat, splat. The path was splattered. Splat, splat, splat. The shed was splattered. Splat, splat, splat. The bench was splattered. Splat, splat, splat. Halt, halt, barked Pride. I command you to halt in the name of the greater greed. One last military fly passed, ordered Ned. Slime knew what the boy meant, and immediately the birds gathered in formation as if they were on the Air Force stunt team. They turned high in the sky before coming straight for Captain Pride. Halt! He bellowed. That's an order! But they didn't stop. They kept coming. Saw! The old soldier began to run away, but he was no match for the slime pigeons. They swooped over his head, dropping their load right on top of him. Splat, 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 splat. Captain Pride was splattered. Dirty beasts, cried the man. His moustache, his blazer, slacks. Sorry about this, guys. It's just not working that well. Cried the man. His moustache and his blazer and his slacks covered him entirely. Dirty beasts, cried the man. His moustache, his blazer, his slacks and highly polished boots, every last part of him was covered in goo. Oops, remarked Ned. You seem to have a tiny peck of something on you, Captain Pride. A red mist of fury descended upon the park keeper. I'll get you, boy, he yelled as he charged at Ned with a little spear. Charge! And it's not Pride, it's Pride. Just in time, the slime pigeon swooped down to Ned and whisked him up from the park bench high into the air. Another day, Captain Pride, he called out above the air, with the beat of 100 slimy wings. The boy vanished into the clouds. Chapter 18. Madame Salinzo Sloth was the island's piano teacher. You might reasonably assume that a piano teacher taught the piano. In this case, you'd be wrong. Sloth was the idlest music teacher in history. The lady would go to the most extraordinary lengths to avoid having to teach the children on the island anything. Whenever Ned reluctantly rolled himself over to Madame Sloth's house for his weekly lesson, she would not utter a single word to him. Instead, she would look at him haughtily and open her hand to be paid. Once her palm had been crossed with silver, she would waddle over to her old gramophone and put on a recording she has made of her giving a piano a lesson. This was just in case any grown-ups were passing by her house and heard what she was really up to. Which, of course, was nothing. "Now, child, let Madam Sloth hear those scales one more time," the voice on the crackly old record would say. Then you would hear the sound of piano keys being struck. Plonk, plink, plonk. One of the illusions had been created. Madam Sloth would take an hour-long snooze on the chaise lounge. Zzz, zzz, zzz. The only way she would wake herself up in time was with one of her bottom bangers. Boom! There was a thunderous as a Wagner opera. If her bottom bangers didn't wake her, an ornate gold carriage clock on her mantelpiece would chime to tell her 1 hour was up and her lesson was over. Ching! How was Madam Sloth allowed to get away with this? Because Greta Gree did nothing about it. In fact, she encouraged it. Anything that brought children misery was fine by her. Because Ned never learned a thing about playing the piano in his years of enduring Madam Sloth's piano lessons, he would be sent off to have more and more lessons. One day, when his mother returned home from the fish market, Ned told her what was really happening in those lessons, which was nothing. Nout. Nada. Nothing. Diddly squat. Of course, being a grown-up, Ned's mother didn't believe him. Just like all the other grown-ups on the island, Madam Sloth had bamboozled the woman into thinking she was the most fantabulous piano teacher in the world. Aside from her gramophone scam, Madam Sloth had a trio of nasty tricks up the sleeve. Her long flowery blouse. If a child dared to complain about the daylight robbery, Madam Sloth would open the piano lid and shut the nasty wretched inside. Clank! That way, Madam Sloth could carry on with her precious snooze undisturbed. Let me out! Zzz, zzz, zzz. If a child attempted to grasp her up to their parents, in the next lesson, Madam Sloth should turn the piano stool upside down and make them perch on one of the legs for the full hour. Ouch! If a child was so bad as to wake Madam Sloth up from one of her snoozes, they would be held upside down by their ankles and forced to play the piano with their nose. Ouch, 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 plonk, plonk, plonk. One time, Ned couldn't take any more of this nonsense, as Madam Sloth lay on the sofa snoring and bottom banging. Zzz, zzz, zzz. He shouted, "This is the end. I am never ever coming to one of your stupid piano lessons ever again." Needless to say, the piano teacher woke up in a foul mood. Without a word, Sloth walked out of the piano room and into the kitchen. As Ned sat on the piano stool, bemused, she returned clutching not 1, not 2, not 3, but 6 tins of baked beans. One by one she ripped them open and guzzled them down in seconds like some kind of strong man at a fair. Her tummy began making the most disturbing sounds like a boiler that was about to explode. "I need to go," announced Ned. "Just one moment," replied Sloth. Next she shuffled over to the boy. From the way she shuffled, it was clear she was clenching her cheeks together. Not her top cheeks, her bottom cheeks. Then, as soon as her behind was close to Ned's nose, she unclenched. "No!" cried the boy. Sloth let off the most explosive bottom banger of all time. Kaboom! The force of the blast was enough to blow Ned straight out of the window. Whoosh! Needless to say, Ned was in no doubt as how much he and all the other children of the island had suffered at the hands of this monstrous woman. He knew that he would be doing them all a favour by teaching the woman a lesson. The question was, how? Chapter 19. Dance to the Music of the Slime. It may surprise you to know that for someone who taught the piano, Madam Sloth could not actually play the piano herself. Not a note, in fact. She hated the sound of her piano being played, as she did all musical instruments. The only sound she did like was silence. Silence meant Sloth could sleep in peace. As Ned and Slime flew over the island, Ned spotted the roof of Madam Sloth's grand old black and white house. It was easy to spot, as she had a swimming pool the shape of a piano in the garden, no doubt paid for her by her ill-gotten gains. "There!" exclaimed the boy. The pair swooped down to the ground beside the house, looking through the window. Surprise, surprise, they saw the piano teacher, if you could call her that, was fast asleep on her chaise lounge, snoring away. Looking across the piano room, Ned and Slime could see the child Sloth was meant to be teaching. The poor thing had been made to stand on one leg on the piano stool while balancing a book of sheet music on her head. Presumably, this was some kind of punishment, no doubt for daring to stand up to the world's laziest piano teacher. The pigeon set Ned down and translimed back into a blob. The girl, balancing on the stool, looked as if she was about to expire. Her face had gone as red as a tomato, and she was pouring with sweat. She must have been balancing there like a flamingo for nearly an hour. With a nod of his head, Ned signalled to her that she could escape. "Are you sure?" the girl mimed. She was clearly terrified of the lady, sprawled out on the chaise lounge. Ned nodded his head. Tentatively, the girl put another leg down and breathed a gigantic sigh of relief. "Thank you," she mouthed before tiptoeing out of the room. Slime slid under the boy's feet and inflated into a ball, so Ned was just the right height to slide in through Sloth's open window. The boy eased himself through, landing on a piano stool. The slime ball followed. At first, it was too fat to fit through. Shunt, shunt, shunt. Then Slime made it itself thin and poured itself through the squelch. "Shh! Shush, Ned. Let's not wake Sloth yet. How best to wake someone who loves silence?" With the world's loudest noise, of course. Slime, began the boy breathlessly. His idea was so good, he couldn't get it out quick enough. "Yes," replied Slime, now turning back into a blob in the piano room. "I need you to become the hugest orchestra in the world. Goody, goody. And I want you to make the noisiest noise ever. Ned wasn't sure of the word, so guessed one. Noised. This was perfect payback for Sloth's explosive bottom banger. In an instant, the blob divided into 100 smaller blobs. These small blobs, smaller than globules, are called globlets. One by one, the globlets began to take shape. These globlets translimed into musical instruments, faster than Ned could name them: a tuba, a French horn, a violin, a trumpet, a double bass. A harp, a set of cymbals, a xylophone, a bass drum, and last but not least, a big and giant gong. Madam Sloth was obviously still snoozing on her chaise lounge. Zzz, zzz, zzz. "Now, orchestra," began Ned, "gather around her and I will conduct." When the pieces of the orchestra were in position, as close to the piano teacher as possible, Ned assumed the role of the conductor. He picked up a banana from the fruit bowl on the coffee table to use as a baton. The boy had once seen a conductor on the television, so had some sense of what to do. Ned tapped the banana on the table to get the attention of all the slimy instruments. Tap, tap, tap. Still, Madam Sloth snored and trumped away. Pff, pff, pff. Her bottom bangers were so foul they could strip the wallpaper from the walls. All the instruments in the slime orchestra, or slimecustra, turned to the conductor. Ned nodded and twirled his banana through the air. Boo! the noisiest noise that ever noised exploded into the room. A shocked sloth shot up off the chase lounge with incredible speed. She smashed up through the ceiling of her piano room. Bang! Smashed through her plush bedroom above. Bang! Finally smashing through the roof of her house. Bang! Ah! Screamed Sloth as she sailed through the air. Ned looked up from the piano stool, though, at the hole in the roof. The boy smiled to himself before he remembered something he had learned, something important. Sir Isaac Newton's law of universal gravitation. In short, what goes up must come down. Ah! Screamed Sloth again. Not the screaming did any good, but it seemed like the appropriate thing to do. The large lady was plummeting straight down towards little Ned. If the boy didn't do something and fast, he would be nothing more than a human slime. Help! Screamed Ned. Ned, now he was screaming too. The piano. Thinking fast, Slime trans-slimed back into a blob and reached round the legs of Madame Sloth's grand piano. With its blobby arms, it yanked the instrument under the hole in the roof, knocking Ned on his piano stool out of the way as it did so. Ah! Screamed Sloth, before crash landing into her own grand piano. Clang, cling, clong, smash, bang, wallop. My piano! She cried from inside the mess of wood and keys and wire. No, I can't give any more piano lessons. You never did, retorted the boy. Ned, she screamed, I will get you for this. With that, Sloth tried to lift herself up from the piano. In all the kerfuffle, the gold carriage clock toppled off her mantelpiece. It clonked Sloth in the head. Boink! Ouch! She screamed. Another job well done, remarked Ned. Always a pleasure, replied Slime as it trans-slimed into a rocket. Hop on. The boy smiled and hauled himself up. Then the rocket blasted him through the hole in Sloth's ceiling, high into the sky above. Zoom! I got the zoomies, howled the boy in delight. Chapter 20. Gruesome Twosome. Glutton's Glaciers was the name emblazoned on the island's one and only ice cream van. The proprieties were a husband and wife team, Glenn and Glenda Glutton. They were meant to sell ice cream, but instead they ate it, all of it, every last bit. The technique they had for stealing from children was foolproof. The van would be parked up outside the playground or school or beach, anywhere on the island where children could be found. Then Mrs. Glutton would appear at the serving window. What delicious ice cream would you like, my dear? She would ask in her nice voice. She had a nice one and a nasty one. More of the nasty one in a moment. Ooh, Ned cooed, looking at the sign with all the delicious toppings. Take your time, my dear. And Mr. Whippy with chocolate sauce and chocolate chips and chocolate flakes, please. Ned really liked chocolate. Sorry about that. Can you change a £1 note, please? Asked the boy. It had been a Christmas present from his mother. Of course we can, my dearest of dears. As soon as Ned had passed the money over, she snatched it out of his hand and yelled, Mr. Glutton, drive! This was in her nasty voice. Glenn Glutton, who'd been sitting in the driving seat all along, then put his foot down on the accelerator pedal and they sped off. Brum! As they did so, the pair shouted, So long, sucker! Poor Ned was left at the side of the road in a cloud of burning rubber smell from the tyres, with no ice cream and no £1 note. How could the Gluttons be allowed to get away with this? Greta agreed, of course. There had been so many attempts to bring the pair to justice, but greed stepped in every time to prevent them from being arrested. To think that this awful duo had made so many children miserable caused the old lady's dark heart to sing with joy. The Isle of Mulch often had visitors, providing fresh victims for the gluttons. The gruesome twosome were not the best advertisements for their own ice cream. Both ate so much of it, straight from the pump, that their teeth had turned black or fallen out altogether. Sometimes a rotten tooth would fly out mid-sentence and hit a child on the head. Ping! Because they ate so much ice cream, Glenn and Glenda Glutton had ballooned so much that they never left their van. They couldn't. It was impossible for them to fit through the doors. So the Gluttons slept in their van. They ate in their van. They even did their doodahs in the van. Just don't ask for chocolate sprinkles. They don't smell anything like chocolate. As Ned zoomed over the island on his slocket, he spotted a long line of children. They were from the posh boarding school on the Isle of Twaddle. Their hideous purple and yellow blazers gave them away. The pupils must have been on a trip to see the world's most boring tourist attraction, Mulch's medieval fort. It was a ruin, little more than a few old stones jutting out of the ground. Because it was old, grown-ups decided that children had to go and look at it. Often for hours at a time. "Dive!" ordered the boy. Still riding the slocket, he hovered over the heads of the children. They were too sad to even crack a smile at a rocket made of slime. "What happened?" Ned called out from above. "It was those rotten ice cream sellers," sobbed one. "They took a mammoth order of ice creams from our whole school and made off with all our pocket money," blubbered another. The pair were so rude, they shouted "so long, suckers," as they sped off. Snuffled a third. "We thought having ice cream would help us get over our crushing disappointment of having visited the world's dullest tourist attraction," bawled a fourth. "But we were wrong. It made the school trip the worst day out ever," yowled a fifth. "I would actually prefer to be at Twaddle College for Noble Offspring right now doing double mathematics." "Surely nothing is worse than double mathematics," exclaimed Ned. "This is," replied the previous child, before bursting into floods of tears. "Boo hoo 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 hoo." This set all the Twaddle children off again. Boo hoo hoo hoo. It was a symphony of sobbing. "These kids are really annoying," murmured Slime. "Shh," shushed Ned, before turning to the children to ask, "Which way did the gruesome twosome go?" All of the children were bawling their eyes out, actually unable to speak. "Oh, for goodness sake," muttered Slime. "Shh." Instead, the children pointed, fortunately all in the same direction. "Thank you, kids. Slime, that way," ordered Ned, and he zoomed off. "I'll be back, Twaddlers." Boo hoo 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 hoo. The Isle of Mulch was a network of long, winding country roads, sheltered by trees, so it was difficult to spot vehicles from above. But then, Glutton's Glaciers was no ordinary vehicle. This great pink monstrosity with a giant model of Mr. Whippy ice cream on its roof would be visible from outer space. Soon, the van rolled into view, and Ned signalled for Slime to zoom down beside it. At first, Mr. and Mrs. Glutton didn't see the strange sight of a boy riding a slocket zooming past them. Glenn was in the driving seat, devouring a humongous handful of ice cream with the flakes sticking out. Ned tapped on the driver's window to get the brute's attention. At first, Glenn smiled and nodded back before the surreal display made him slam on the brakes. Screech! The ice cream he was scoffing went everywhere, all over his face, splat, and all over the windscreen, splut. Meanwhile, in the back, Mrs. Glutton had been counting the cash she'd stolen from the Twaddle children. Because of the sudden stop, she found herself upside down on the floor of the van. "Help me, you fool!" she cried out to her husband, unable to pull herself to stand up. "I can't see," shouted Mr. Glutton as he scrambled over his seat into the back of the van. As he did so, his huge foot knocked the tap on the ice cream pump. Splurge! Mr. Whippy began swamping them. "Ah!" cried Mrs. G. "My body is frozen." Still blind from having a face full of ice cream, Mr. J tripped over his wife and fell right on top of her. "Oof!" he cried. "Ouch!" she cried. "Get off me, you great lump. I am not a great lump. No, I am sorry, I got it wrong. You are a huge lump. Massive lump." Ned, who was still hovering outside the window, burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha ha! Someone's laughing at us," barked Mr. Glutton. "They really are going to get it," bawled Mrs. Glutton. Chapter 21. Peeved Cow. Mrs. Glutton shoved her lump of a husband off her and scrambled to her feet. Next, she shut off the ice cream tap, which had still been splurging away. Click! "It's Ned," announced Ned, still hovering outside their van on his slocket. "Remember me?" The boy was sure the pair would, after so cruelly stealing his pound note. "No," barked Glenda. "Should I?" "Yes," said the boy, miffed that he hadn't been remembered. "I know you," began Glen. Ned smiled. "Go on. Aren't you the boy who was just flying by the window?" "Yes," snapped Ned. "But I mean before then, obviously." "You don't ring any bells," muttered Glenda. "I am Ned. I ordered a Mr. Whippy. I gave you a £1 note. You just stole it and sped off. No ice cream, no nothing." Mr. and Mrs. Glutton looked at each other. "Still no, not a clue," said Mrs. Glutton. "To be honest," began Mr. G, "we do that all day, every day. So try as we might, we can't remember individual victims." "Don't take it to heart, boy," whispered Mr. G. Mrs. G, licking Mr. Whippy off her chin with her thick, rough tongue. If this was meant to be to pacify Ned, it had the opposite effect. The boy became enraged. "Well, I'm going to get my revenge on the pair of you, for me and hundreds of children you have robbed." The pair looked at each other and burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha ha! Hundreds," began Mr. Glutton. "It's more like thousands, millions," his wife chuckled. "Billions, trillions, zillions." "Ha ha ha! Well, I, Ned, am going to use my slime power for all of them," announced Ned. "Your what?" grunted Glen. "This boy is bananas," grunted Glenda. "Your crime spree is over," they shouted. "You'll have to catch us first," exclaimed Mr. Glutton. With that, he hauled himself onto the driving seat and stamped on the accelerator pedal. Stomp! Brum! "So long, sucker!" they shouted. The ice cream van lurched off. Screech, toppling Mr. Glutton off her feet again. "Oof!" she cried as she landed on her ample bottom. The problem was that the windscreen was still covered in ice cream. Mr. Glutton couldn't see a thing. As a result, the van skidded off the road. Screech, smashed through a hedge, crunch, then bumped its way across a field of cows. Bump, bump, bump. "Moo! Moo! Moo!" cried the cows. As well you might if I cried the cows. "As well you might if an ice cream van was speeding straight at you, and of course you were a cow." "Watch where you're going, you fool," yelled Mrs. Glutton, bouncing up and down in the back. "I can't see a blasted thing," yelled Mr. Glutton. He flicked on the windscreen wipers. Swish, swash, swish, swash. "The ice cream won't come off," he bellowed. "That's because it's on the inside." You ignoramus," Mrs. Glutton bellowed back. The man shook his head and wiped the inside of the windscreen with his sleeve. At last he could see, but the sight was greeted with Mr. Glutton made him shriek with horror. "Ah!" On Ned's suggestion, slime had formed into a giant Mr. Whippy ice cream. The boy was the topping. "Remember me now," called Ned. The ice cream van was heading straight for it. Still no, barked Mr. Glutton. He was driving too fast to make the van stop. He stomped on the brake hard. Stomp! So hard that the back wheels jumped up into the air. Whoosh! It somersaulted over the giant Mr. Whippy before crash landing upside down on the grass. Ka-thump! Moo! Cried the cows as they scattered out of the way. Slime translimed back into a blob, placing Ned on the way back of a peeved-looking cow. Moo! Ned patted the cow. Good girl. We'll get you for this, boy, shouted an upside-down Mr. Glutton. We'll get you good and proper, agreed an upside-down Mrs. Glutton. Then the boy gave the cow a gentle slap and it trottled closer to the ice cream van. Well, seeing as you love ice cream so much, I thought you might like to try the special slime flavour. Slime flavour? Bawled Glenn. Sounds disgusting, bawled Glenda. It is, replied the boy. Slime, let's give the good Mr. and Mrs. Glutton a humongous helping. A splendid idea, Ned, it said before oozing through the gap of the window. No! The pair screamed as goo began filling their upturned van. Still, the slime oozed and oozed in until the entire upside-down ice cream van was full to bursting. Then the windscreen, windows and the doors exploded with the pressure. Crack, smash, boom! The van broke into pieces. Clatter, clatter, clatter! The gruesome twosome oozed out onto the cowpat-covered grass in a giant puddle of slime, or a sluddle. Oh, moaned Mrs. Glutton. I am all slimy. What's he done to our van? Cried Mr. Glutton. Slime sees their ice cream. Slime sees their ice cream, ordered Ned. Goody, goody, replied the blob as it gathered itself back together. No, cried the pair. We've barely eaten today, said Mr. G. We are starving, added Mrs. G. But Slime was quick and had soon pulled the huge metal ice cream dispenser out onto the wreck of the van. Clunk! We have some hungry children to feed, Ned announced. Let's fly. Slime became a giant airship, or slimepoline, and began up the bite from the back of the grateful cow. Moo! Then it whisked Ned and the ice cream dispenser high into the sky. We'll get you, began Mr. Glutton. What's your name again? So long, suckers, called back Ned. Chapter 22. Ice Cream Party. The twitch from Twaddle School for Noble Offspring was still boo-hooing beside the ruin when Ned returned on his airship, made of slime. Boo-hoo-hoo! Kids, called out Ned, I told you I would be back, and I brought ice cream. Yeah, they all cheered as Slime and Ned descended. Slime, get the ice cream dispenser down on the boring block of stone that the grown-ups claimed was once part of Mulcher's medieval fort. The posh children all rushed over to the big metal box of Mr. Whippy. Ice cream! They cried. Yoo-hoo! Slime was now back to its blobulous self, sitting next to Ned on a mossy stone. The friends shared a smile at another job well done. In an instant, the cheers of the children turned to silence. Excuse me, but where are the cones? Asked Ned. Oh, sorry, we didn't think to bring any cones, replied Ned, rather taken aback. And I'm partial to a chocolate flake, remarked another. Well, we didn't have time to. And the hundreds and thousands? Inquired a third. Ungrateful little. Shh, shush Ned. Boo-hoo-hoo, they all bawled again. Now we are not going to have any ice cream, moaned one. This trip has gone from bad to worse, whined another. Take me back to double maths, whimpered a third. Slime rolled its eyes. I've got a good mind to take the ice cream dispenser and shove it. Shh, shush, Ned. Look, kids all have to do is flick their nozzle and an ice cream party. Ned did just that. Click, and the soft Mr. Whippy ice cream splurged out. Splurge, it splurged all over Ned. Splurge, it splurged all over Slime. Splurge, it splurged all over the children. Splurge, it splurged all over Mulch's medieval fort. In no time, everyone was covered in the stuff. They looked like snowmen. Ice cream party! Cried one, licking the ice cream off her nose. This is the best day ever, cried another, scooping handfuls of ice cream off the top of her head and shoving them into her mouth. I still would have liked a flake, muttered a third tearfully. I am dairy intolerant, remarked a third. Is there a vegan option? You can't please everyone, muttered Ned to Slime. It certainly seems that way, it replied. Where next, my friend? The day is coming to an end. Ned instantly knew where. Everything today has been leading up to this. This is the last one, and it's going to be dangerous. Goody, goody, I love danger, Slime replied. Chapter 13. Flying Saucer. Are you allergic to cats? Asked Ned. It was an important question. Aunt Greta had 101 of them. Not that I know of, said Slime. Then let's go, exclaimed the boy. Do you have a preferred mode of transport? Surprise me, Slime said. Slime smiled and translimed into a flying saucer. A flying saucer, exclaimed Ned, as he watched of the thing spin and spin. I suppose I was thinking of cats. Cats drink out of saucers. You are clever. I know, agreed Slime. Let's go. Slime plucked the boy from the fort and placed him on top of the flying saucer. Which way, Ned? It asked. The boy was spinning round on top of the saucer and beginning to feel more than a little dizzy. However, he could see his aunt's colossal castle sitting proudly on the tallest hill on the island. That way, he said, pointing in every direction. You mean the castle? Asked Slime. Yes. So who lives there? The person who owns this wretched island. The one who loathes children more than anyone. My Aunt Greta. She sounds delightful, joked Slime. Delightful is not the first word that springs to my mind. So I take it you are not close. Close? Ha ha, I haven't seen Aunt Greta in a long, long time. Well then, we need to pop by. The slime flying saucer spun faster and faster through the sky, with poor Ned clinging onto it for dear life. Whoa! Chapter 24. Kitty Litter Castle. There are cat ladies and there are cat ladies. Aunt Greta was a cat lady. She had over 100 of them. Aunt Greta and her 101 cats. I told you she had over 100 of them. Aunt Greta and her 101 cats lived in a remote castle. It stood high on a hill overlooking the entire Isle of Mulch, which she owned. Because of her obsession with cats, Aunt Greta had named her home Kitty Litter Castle. The grand old lady wore a long, flowing dresses dotted with images of cats. Whenever she walked, she clinked because she was drowning in jewellery. All Aunt Greta's jewellery was, of course, cat-themed. Cat brooches, cat earrings, cat bracelets, cat rings, cat watches, cat pendants. She even had a cat tiara, a crazy cat crown. On her walls, the lady had the most extraordinary collection of artwork. As long as you like cats. The cats were often in recreations of famous paintings. Mona Moggy, the cat's scream, the pussy with a pearl earring, the son of a cat, the Moggy's mother, the cat's kiss, the laughing caterpillar, pussy portrait with a bangled ear, cat leading the cat luncheon on the grass. But there weren't just painting of cats. Oh no, there were also statues of cats everywhere in bronze, silver and gold. Here was a statue of a cat playing with a ball of wool. She even had here was another of one curled up asleep. She even had one of a cat licking its own bottom. As Aunt Greta had 101 cats, she couldn't possibly remember that many names. She decided to name every single one of them Tiddles. Tiddles, it's dinner time, she would call, and 101 cats would charge towards her, sweeping her off her feet. Cats were Aunt Greta's only friends. The lady didn't like people. She didn't trust them. Even though Ned was her nephew, she never ever saw him, or her niece, Gemina, or even her young sister, their mother. That is because Greta had come into a large inheritance from a long-lost relative. It was millions upon millions upon millions. And greed wasn't sharing a penny of it with anyone. There was a huge sign outside the castle that read, "Trespassers will be eaten by cats." If this wasn't enough to put you off trying to get in, then the lack of a drawbridge over the moat might. Years ago, Aunt Greta Greed burned it and sank it by the water below. With no drawbridge to the castle, nobody could come near. Nobody could be left all alone with her riches, and of course, her cats. These pampered creatures sported sparkling diamond-encrusted dollars, devoured caviar, fish eggs, which might not sound expensive, but which are hideously so, and slept on silk sheets in 4-poster beds. In the event of her death, Aunt Greta was planning to leave Kitty Litter Castle and all its contents to, you've guessed it, her cats. There were times when those close to Aunt Greta begged for her to help them, for a morsel of food, for somewhere to sleep at night, for a penny to help anybody, even those in desperate need. Even Ned, when he needed some new tyres for his wheelchair, had been spurned by his wicked aunt, as he knew were all the children on the island. One day, a group of children plucked up the courage to ask, "Please may we play a game of football on one of the fields you own?" With a word to them, Aunt Greta set her 100 cats on the children. Tiddles, attack! Meow! Hiss! Scratch! Needless to say, the children never asked again. But they never forgot her cruelty. And neither did Ned. Chapter 25. A Swarming Sea of Cats. The Slime Flying Saucer, or USO, unidentified sliming object, spun through the sky. It spun so fast that poor Ned couldn't hold on any longer. One by one, Ned could feel his fingers lose their grip as the USO flew over Kitty Litter Castle. The boy felt himself flying through the air. "Ah!" he screamed. Slime chased after him, but Ned was spinning so fast it couldn't catch him. He tumbled through the air into the castle's moat. Splosh! The boy sank deep under the water. He couldn't swim unless Slime did something fast. Ned would be no more. Slime dived down into the moat and came back up as kind of a sea monster with a soaked Ned riding on its back. Needless to say, as it was wet, the monster was slippery too. Ned couldn't hold on. "Whoa!" he cried as he slid down the monster's back. Just as he was about to fall off completely, the monster swished its tail and sent the boy flying through the air. Whoosh! Ned flew straight over the wall of the castle. Ah! Below him, Ned could see the castle's courtyard getting nearer and nearer. It was a swarming sea of cats. Cats of every size and colour. Black cats, white cats, ginger cats, grey cats, red cats, blue cats, even one of those weird, baldy cats. Meow, meow, meow. Any moment now, the boy was going to land right on top of them. "Help!" he screamed. "Cats!" Hiss, hiss, hiss. Chapter 26. Eaten Alive. As Ned tumbled through the air, he shut his eyes. The boy was about to be eaten alive by 101 cats. However, what Ned didn't see was that Slime was arching up from the moat to form a bouncy castle beneath him. A bouncy castle was made of slime, a slouncy castle. The slouncy castle landed right on top of the cats. Meow, meow, hiss, hiss, meow. Ned landed in the dead centre of the slouncy castle. Boing! Only to find himself flying back up into the air, back over the wall. Splosh, whoosh! Heading straight for the moat again. Once Ned had been plucked over the murky depths, Slime turned himself into a ladder. A sladder. A sladder seemed like the perfect way to get over the castle wall. That was until the boy actually attempted to haul himself up with his arms. It was so wet and slippery, he slid straight back down the moat. Sploosh! Eventually, after much discussion between Ned and his slimy friend, a solution was found. It was so simple, it was brilliant. The boy would be shot out of a slime cannon or slannon and land on top of the kitty litter castle. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, Slime blasted Ned up into the air. Bang! Whoosh! Over the wall of the castle. Whoosh! Over the courtyard of cats. Whoosh! Over the other wall of the castle. Whoosh! Crash landing in the moat on the far side. Splosh! No! Slime translimed back into the sea of monsters and plunged down into the depths of the moat. No! Slime translimed back into the sea monster and plunged down into the depths of the moat to save his friend. Once back on dry land, the boy wailed, "This is impossible!" "Nothing is impossible," replied Slime. "Getting into Aunt Greta's castle is—" "Yes, apart from that, obviously." "Obviously?" The pair thought for a moment. "There must be some way over the wall and past those cats," said Ned. What do cats hate?" asked Slime. "Dogs? Then a dog I shall be." In an instant, Slime translimed into a dog, or slug. The slug, which was 100 times the size of a normal dog, dried itself off by doing that weird shaking thing that dogs do. Flutter. Next, the dog placed Ned on its back. Miraculously, the boy didn't slip off. It then paced away from the castle before pounding towards it and leaping a gigantic jump. Leap! They leaped over the wall. Whoosh! In success. They landed in the castle courtyard, right on top of the sea of cats. Meow, meow, meow. Hiss, hiss, meow, hiss. With cats circling them, the pair were scared. What shall we do? asked Slime. "You are a dog," reminded Ned. "Growl at them." "I'll try," replied Slime. Grrr! Aunt Greta's cats were not easily scared. In fact, they actually laughed. Aunt Greta's cats were not... Meow! "Oh no," said Ned. "Oh yes," said Slime. The cats began circling the intruders before going on the attack, baring their fangs. Hiss! Some of the bolder cats began scratching at this dog with their claws. Meow! Hiss! Swipe! Scratch! Ned and Slime cowered in a corner. They cowered so far in the corner that in no time the pair were nothing more than a gooey mess. "Oh no!" exclaimed Slime. "Oh yes," exclaimed Ned. "It looks like the end." "It certainly does. There are just so many of them." "How many?" asked Slime. "I can't count them all. They keep moving around." Still, Aunt Greta's army of cats hissed and swiped with their claws. Meow! Hiss! Swipe! Scratch! "If they aren't scared of dogs, there must be something else they are frightened of," reasoned Ned. "But what?" The cats were pouring nearer and nearer. Stomp! 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 "Water!" exclaimed the boy. "Of course!" agreed Slime. Slime became a raging sea. "Now!" Slime did just as his friend asked. In no time at all, the castle courtyard was sloshing with a slimy sea, or slee. Meow! Screamed the cats. Ned was right. The cats were scared of water. In fact, they were terrified. The monstrous moggies were now leaping onto anything floating to the surface of the slimy sea. Chairs, tables, other cats. Meow! Ned, who was body surfing on a wooden tray, spied an open window on the wall. "Through there, slime," he called out. The boy slid through the window and out, and the sea of slime followed, pouring itself through the narrow frame. Inside the castle, the boy fell on the floor. Thud. Oof. The slime poured on top of him. "Splurge. Yuck," said the boy. Ned looked around. He was inside the biggest room he'd ever been in his life. It was a picture of opulence. Oil paintings, priceless antiques, crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. It was a world away from the humble cottage where he lived. "Who goes there?" demanded a voice. It was Ned's aunt. Greta Greed. The lady was standing right over them, dripping with jewels and holding a particular fearsome cat in her arms. Hiss. Chapter 27. A cat as big as a bear. At first glance, it wasn't clear who was holding who. It might as well have been the cat holding the ant, as they were both the same size. The cat, like all the other cats, was called Tiddles. The Tiddles you could tell apart from the rest of the simple reason that it was the size of a grizzly bear. It was a really gigantic Tiddles. "I said, who goes there?" repeated Aunt Greta. The boy heaved himself up onto the chair. Meanwhile, slime, which had spread out over the silk rug, gathered itself together. It took a blobulous form behind the boy. "It's me, Aunt Greta, your favourite nephew, Ned," spluttered the boy. "Well, I say favourite. You've only got one, so I must be your favourite." Aunt Greta was the least amused. "You are a leech is what you are, boy, sucking all you can from me, like the rest of your wretched family." The evil cat was giving him the evil eye. They glinted like diamonds. Hiss! It hissed. "Didn't you read the sign? Trespassers will be eaten. I want you out my castle right now, or I will get Tiddles on you." With that, she hurled gigantic Tiddles towards the boy. The great thing landed with a thud on the floor. Doof. "And who is the gigantic bogey with you?" demanded Aunt Greta. "Charming," exclaimed Slime. As it looked down, it noticed that gigantic Tiddles was licking Slime's blobby foot with its huge rough tongue. Slime did not agree with this, however, and soon gigantic Tiddles was licking Slime. Gigantic Tiddles was coughing up not hairballs but slime balls. Huh. "Slime is my friend," replied the boy. "How perfectly revolting to have a lump of snot for a friend," remarked Aunt Greta. "You should try having a friend some day, Aunt Greta. We worry about you here, all alone in your castle." The lady chuckled to herself. "Ha ha ha! Friends? I've no need for friends, or family, or nobody. These are my nearest and dearest with that." The lady displayed her jewels to the boy. Aunt Greta looked like a Christmas tree, with sparkly decorations dangling from every conceivable place. And of course, her crazy cat crown. You might mistake Aunt Greta for a member of the royal family, if not for the stench of cat pee. "What are you doing here, boy?" she screamed. "I didn't invite you to my castle. I never invite people to my castle. They always want something." "Well, actually," began Ned, before he was cut off. "Is it money? Is that why you are here? Because I will tell you now that you are not getting a single penny of my millions. Do you hear me, boy? Not a penny." "Is she always like this?" whispered Slime. This is her on a good day, replied Ned. What do you want, boy? Tell me, she thundered, or else I will set 101 cats on you. Ned looked up at the castle window. The other 100 cats must have scrambled up the courtyard wall. Now they were streaming into the living room, a rushing river of cats. Hiss! Led by gigantic Tiddles. All the other Tiddles began circling the pair, ready to strike. Tell me, boy, she yelled, causing her jewellery to clank together, or you will be cat food. Meow. Hiss. The boy had the naughtiest notion. A notion that would teach this lady a lesson that might just change the lives of all the children on Mulch forever. I am here, Aunt dearest, because I want to give you something. The lady was intrigued. Yes, you. I worry that you just don't have enough jewellery. Greta looked down at her many adornments. You are right, boy, she trilled. I don't have nearly enough sparkly things. There is always a need for more. Would you like some more? Asked Ned. Yes, growled Greed. Gimme, more. Ned looked at Slime. I knew you would want more. Please, let my friend Slime treat you. The pair smiled at each other. Slime knew exactly what to do. Let's start with another necklace, exclaimed the boy. With that, Slime's chest opened and a torpedo of goo shot out. It hit the lady's chest, covering her in slime. Splat! And of course, some new earrings. 2 smaller slime blobs struck her ears. Splat, splat! And why have a tiara when you can have a great big massive crown? Then, what was left of Slime rose into the air and came crashing down on her head, covering her from top to bottom in goo. Splat! She shrieked, as Ned allowed himself a chuckle. Ha ha ha! Slime gathered himself together and shot back over to the boy. We need to get out of here, exclaimed Slime. Why? The Tiddles are on the attack. Ned looked down. Surrounding him were the cats, and more cats. Leading the pride of cats was gigantic Tiddles. The enormous beast jumped at the boy, its fangs bared. Hiss! Slime thought fast. Without a word, it shot up to the ceiling. Splat! It was now like a giant jellyfish. Long, gooey tentacles poured down from above. What about me? Ned called up. I am getting there, Slime called down. Just in time, the tentacles scooped up the boy and whisked him to the ceiling. Whoosh! Ned's bare feet became embedded in the slime. Splut! He hung there upside down, out of reach of the cat's claws, feeling more than a little pleased with himself. However, the smug look on his face turned sour as his slime-drenched aunt barked her order. Tiddles, eat that boy. Chapter 28. A Mount of Moggies. Aunt Greta must have trained her 101 cats in circus skills. Unlikely, I know, but stay with me, because immediately the beasts began climbing. Up on each other's shoulders. The cats formed some kind of cat ladder, or cadder, to give it its proper name. In no time the cats were rising, higher and higher in the blink of an eye. They were dangerously close to the boy, their sharp claws swerping at him. Slime, please do something, Ned screamed. Slime started sliming its way along the ceiling to escape. Splut, splut, splut. However, it soon became tangled up in a chandelier. Swish, 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 hiss, hiss, chink, chank, chunk. Tiddles! We have them now, bellowed Aunt Greta from below as she wiped the goo off her face. Enjoy your dinner, my beauties. Now, cats are not the brightest of creatures. In my experience of spending time with different types of animals, I would rate their intelligence low. The not clever thing that the cats did was make the kitten Tiddles go at the bottom of the cat ladder, then the fully grown Tiddles go in the middle, then gigantic Tiddles at the top. Gigantic Tiddles was now level with the boy, tangled up with Slime in the chandelier. The monstrous Moggy was chomping at the air, just a whisker from Ned's face. As Slime tried to escape from the chandelier, clink, clank, clunk, it accidentally swung the upside down boy straight towards the beast. Swoosh! Ah! Screamed Ned. Chomp! Chomped gigantic Tiddles as its fangs bit into Ned's ear. The pain was eye-watering. Ah! What's more, the beast was not letting go. Help! A giant cat earring is perhaps the most painful earring of them all. The boy kept swinging, and gigantic Tiddles swung too. Swish! The beast swung so far that the cadder began to crumble. Meow, meow, meow. As gigantic Tiddles stayed locked onto Ned's ear with its fangs, the other 100 cats beneath him took a tumble, or a cumble. The 100 cats fell right on top of Aunt Greta. Thud, 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 meow, meow, meow. The lady was buried under a mountain of Moggies. Came a muffled cry. No doubt one of the cat's bottoms, or cobhams, was stuck right under her nose. With all the other cats having tumbled or cumbled to the floor incredibly, gigantic Tiddles was still dangling or cangling from Ned's ear. Try as Ned might to fight it off, the beast was not letting go of Ned's ear. In fact, it was sinking its fangs deeper and deeper into his flesh. Chomp! Yow! Screamed Ned, as you might if you had a giant cat that weighed as much as a small car dangling from your ear. Meanwhile, Aunt Greta was scrambling up from underneath the mountain of cats. Many of her Moggies were still stuck all over her gooey body. The wicked lady looked like a huge furry monster. Before. After. I can't get the gigantic cat off my ear, screamed Ned. Tickle it, suggested Slime. Tickle it? It's worth a try. Immediately, the upside-down pair began tickling gigantic Tiddles all over its body. Its ears, its chin, its legs, its tummy, its tail. Tickle, 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 tickle. Nothing worked. The cat remained unmoved. Tickle the tip of its tail, ordered Ned. I am not tickling the tip of a cat's tail, replied Slime. Why not? Demanded the boy. People will talk. Nonsense, let's do it together. That is exactly what they did. The pair tickled the tip of gigantic Tiddles' tail. Me? How? The cat laughed. As it did so, it opened its mouth and let go of Ned's ear. Whoosh! Gigantic Tiddles fell through the air. No! Cried Aunt Greta from below, as the cat, the weight of a baby elephant, crashed down on her head. Doink! Ow! She cried. Have you had enough now? Asked Ned, or would you like some more? More. Please, pleaded Aunt Greta. No more. No more. More. Then things have to change on Mulch. Anything, just name it. No more nasty grown-ups terrorising children. I haven't a clue who you mean, she protested. You know exactly who I mean. Wraith, the Envies, Pride, Sloth, the Gluttons. We children want them all off the island forever. Or, asked Reed, or Slime will have its fun with you. No, she begged. I will have them shipped off at once. Excellent, exclaimed Ned. And as for you, well, I promise to be nicer to the nasty little wretches. I mean, children. Mused the boy. You are getting there. Now please, no. You are welcome to be part of our family again. We would love you to pop over for tea at our cottage one day. Stuttered the lady. Slime will take you. It would be a pleasure, said Slime with a wicked tone in its voice. Goody, goody. No to the lift, but yes for the tea, she replied. Super, said Ned. Now, Slime, let's go. Slime untangled himself from the chandelier to become a jetpack or slet pack. Goodbye for now, said Ned. Together the friends shot out of the castle window and Aunt Greta watched them go, open-mouthed in shock. Zoo! Chapter 29. Setting Sun. Here, home please, called out the boy to the slimy jetpack on his back. Certainly, Ned, obliged Slime, and they flew through the sky back to the place where their adventure had begun, the family cottage. Whoosh! Ned's home was eerily quiet from above, as it was only dusk. His mother and father would still be hard at work. But where was his sister Gemina? Upon searching the whole house, Ned found that it was empty. Gemina! He called out. Gemina! But she was nowhere to be found. Where is she? Asked the boy. Slime shook its slimy head. No idea, but she can't have gone far. Mulch isn't a big island. Checking in the bathroom, Ned noticed his wheelchair was missing too. My wheelchair! She's taken my wheelchair! My sister is an absolute horror. Where on earth can she have put it? He cursed. What would she want with it? I bet she's thrown it off a cliff. Ned, you don't know that. She's done worse. Gemina can't be all bad. Oh, she is, replied Ned. Well, let's see if we can find her. If we do, I'm sure your wheelchair won't be far away. I guess so. I know so. Come on. With that, Slime scooped the boy out of the bathroom, and they took to the skies once more. This time, Ned's friend translimed into a kite, or a slite. The boy lay on top of the slite, and together they flew through the island in search of Gemina. Look, shouted the boy. Boot prints. Instead, they were big boot prints in the mud leading into the forest. The pair glided over the trees until Ned spotted a clearing. There was a flash of bright colours down below, and the boy thought it must have been his big sister's flowery dress. He gestured for Slime to descend, and silently the pair swooped down to the forest floor. Slime changed back into being a blob. It scooped Ned up into his blobby arm and held him tight. The boy was right. Up ahead, beside the oldest tree in the forest, was Gemina and his wheelchair. The girl was too far away for Ned to know what she was doing, but he was sure she was up to no good. Let's get her again, Ned whispered to Slime. Hang on a moment, hesitated Slime. No, come on, we need the element of surprise. Now turn yourself back into a slime ball. Exactly, a slime ball? Exactly. Then we can roll over to her and surprise, cover her from head to toe in slime. Slime shrugged, as much as a blob of slime can shrug, and did whatever it was told. Ned pulled himself up on top of the slime ball, and together they rolled across to the forest, nearer and nearer to the girl. Trundle, trundle, trundle. It was only when they were near that Ned saw that Gemina's head was resting on the seat of his wheelchair. The boy wanted to tell her that he had blown off countless times on the very spot where her nose was, but thought better of it. It would spoil the surprise. Rolling nearer still, Ned noticed Gemina was doing something he never heard her do before. She was crying. Why is she blubbering? Whispered Ned to Slime. Maybe your sister misses you. Don't be daft, Slime. She hates me. She's just like I hate her. Come on, let's get closer. The slime ball rolled over a twig that snapped in two. Snap! The noise must have startled Gemina. Acting on instinct, she leapt to her feet and kicked out. She kicked so hard with her booted foot. Bash! That Ned and Slime shot up into the sky. Ah! Screamed the boy as he began tumbling back to earth. He realised this particular plan had not gone to plan. Slime! He shouted up. Help me! Slime was a great deal higher in the sky than him. Ned, I can't get you! The boy screamed. Ah! Ned was plummeting towards Gemina. Chapter 30. Forever. Then the most marvellous thing happened. Jemina caught Ned in her arms. "Oof!" she exclaimed. "Ned, I am so pleased I found you." Now face to face, Ned saw that she had tears in her eyes. Slime landed a little way off in the forest. Thud! It began rolling over towards them, through the small trees. "Why were you crying, Jemina?" asked Ned. "I was worried about you," she replied, holding her little brother in her arms. "Me?" The boy couldn't believe his ears. "Yes, you. I am so sorry I made you run away from home." "Well, you were always so beastly to me." "I know, but I never wanted you to run away. When you did, I realised how much I—" "You what?" asked Ned. Was Jemina really going to say it? "Like you. I thought you were going to say love." "Let's stick with like right now," replied Jemina. "Like is good," exclaimed Ned. "You are my little brother, and I should be looking after you, not playing horrid tricks on you." "Thank goodness for that," said Ned. "But why are you hiding out here in the forest?" "Since dawn I've been looking all over the island for you. The forest was the last place I looked. I broke down because night was falling, and I thought you were gone forever." By this time, Slime had rolled all the way over to the pair. Trundle, trundle, trundle. "Hello," said Slime. "Ah!" screamed Jemina. "It talks." "There's no need to scream," reassured Ned. "I am perfectly friendly," said Slime. "You did beat me up the bottom," said Jemina. "Oh yes," replied Slime. "Sorry about that." "I deserved it," she said. "But what are you?" "I am Slime." Jemina lifted up her hand and touched this strange creature. "Yes, you do feel very, very slimy," she remarked. "Slime was made when I mixed together all those disgusting things you had collected in jars," added Ned. Jemina's eyes fell. "So you found out about my little plan?" "Yes, I did," replied Ned. "Oh no," she said. "Oh yes. But because of all that, I have made a friend and had the most marvellous adventure." "Well, that's something, I guess. Where have you been?" she asked. "Flying all over the island," replied Slime. "We have been righting wrongs." "Well, I would like to right a wrong," began the girl. "Ned, I am sorry." The boy smiled and wrapped his arms around his sister. "Come with us," said Ned. "Let's take one last flight. Me and Jemina." "Me?" said Jemina. "Yes, you," said the boy. He shook his sister by the hand. "One last time around the island, please, Slime." "With pleasure," replied Slime. It scooped up the pair and took to the sky. This time it changed into a giant slimy dragon. Ned and Jemina held on to each other as they sat in its back, its wings flapping below them. Chapter 31. Final Fight. Together, Ned and Jemina flew all over Mulch. They flew over the school where the pupils were streaming out of, the building, laughing and joking. The children were all streaming out of the building, having a grand old time. "Thank you, Ned," they cried. The boy beamed and waved back. Next, they flew over to the park. To Ned's surprise, a group of kids were playing football on the grass. "Ned," they shouted up, "we love you." The boy beamed. "Thank you," he called back. Then they flew over to the toy shop. Nearby, a gaggle of children were out playing with their new toys. "Ned, you're the best," they shouted up, flying astride the dragon. The boy did a little bow. I've got a really cool brother," remarked Jemina. "Get used to it," said Ned. "Ha ha!" The pair chuckled as they flew over their mother's fish market stall and waved to her. "Mum, look, we are up here." The poor woman fainted and fell into a fish tray, as well as you might faint if you saw your children flying on the back of a dragon made of slime, or a slimagon. Ned and Jemina swooped over their father's fishing boat and was just coming into port. "Dad, look!" The man nearly tumbled off his boat into the sea. "Oops," said Ned. Another boat was heading out the port. It was a prison ship. All the horrid grown-ups, Wrath, the Envies, Pride, Sloth, and the Gluttons were all locked in cages on the deck. They rattled the bars and screamed at the sky. "We'll get you for this," they cried. "So long, suckers," called out the boy. "Ha ha," laughed Gemma, and she, Ned, and Slime soared up high above the clouds. Finally, they flew towards the sun as it set on the most extraordinary day Mulch had ever known. Zoom! Gemma held tight to her brother, wrapping her arms around his chest. The boy looked over her shoulder and smiled. No words were necessary. Eventually, the three returned to the clearing in the forest, landing at the spot where they had left Ned's wheelchair. Slime turned back into its usual blobby self. Wow! Exclaimed Gemma, her face beaming with joy. I know, right? Replied Ned. Wow! So my little brother has some kind of superhero now. Ned chuckled. Ha ha! I guess so. But you know what? I don't want to be a superhero. I just want to be me. With that, the boy slipped off Slime for the last time and back onto his wheelchair. That's better, said Ned. Not nearly so slimy. Well, began Slime, it seems as if my work here is done. I will bid you both a fond farewell. The two children hugged the great slimy blob. Thank you, Slime. We will never forget you, said Ned. I will go and find some other children who might need naughty pranks played on grown-ups. Lucky them, said Ned. Look after each other. We will, said the pair in unison. With that, Slime changed into thousands of little blobs. These little blobs flew past the trees and in the sky. There they floated for a few moments before darting in all directions over the sky. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Soon, Slime would be in the hands of children all over the world. Children just like you. Epilogue. We should be home in time for tea, said Ned. It's your birthday tomorrow, remembered Gemma. I know. No surprises, please. As if, chuckled the girl. I will run your bath. Ned gave his sister a look. With water, she continued. I almost trust you. Ned began to turning the wheels on his wheelchair and Gemma took the handles at the back. Let me give you a push, she said. I don't need a push. In fact, why don't you hop on? Are you sure? Yep, the thing is cool. Let me show you what me and my wheelchair can do. All right, replied the girl as she hopped onto the bar at the back. Ned gathered speed. Whoa! Soon they'd weaved their way out of the forest and were speeding along a country lane. Ned knocked up the front wheels and jumped, and the pair did a wheelie. Love it, exclaimed Gemma. You've seen nothing yet. Then he began spinning the chair round and round. Whiz! As the pair hurtled down the hill, they exclaimed, We've got the zoomies. Thank you everyone who's listened to this book. I hope you enjoyed it and don't forget to like and subscribe.